Dun, 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 dun. Hey, folks. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Okay, let me make sure everything is all set. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Let's see. Shout out, shout out, shout out. What up, Nikita Clark? He was just at the book club yesterday. I don't like the way this camera's set up, but I'm gonna leave it as is. Good. You guys can hear me? Great. We're gonna just jump right into everything in about 2 minutes. I just want to give people a chance to get on. It's been a wild day, y'all. It has been a wild day, but I'm here. One of my really, really good friends has got like some horrible, I don't even know if it's horrible. It's news that changes your life. And so I was like, Lord, that just killed my entire vibe. Like, man. But we will press through. But I guess to start things off, now last time I was telling you guys that I was pissed because I missed the New Edition concert. They were here in DC maybe about 2 weeks ago, and I meant to get tickets. It was like in the plans. I was ready. I forgot. I was going to the gym, and mind you, my gym is right by the big arena, the Capital One Arena. And so I'm walking, and I went to the Walgreens, and somebody in the line was like, "Oh, what's the big event today?" And the cashier was like, "Oh, there was like a concert tonight." And I was like, "Oh shoot, crap!" I was like, "Dang, it's the New Edition show." So I was pissed, but I was like, you know what? I'll just go to the Baltimore show. But then there weren't a lot of seats that were left together in Baltimore because they pretty much sold out most of the venue. And the only seats that were like together are like the nosebleed seats where you're going to be bumping your head. And I'm sorry, there's just certain shows where I want a good seat. You know, I don't mind being in the nosebleeds for a show that's really just specifically on vocals and musicality and the band. That's fine. You know, I can sit in the back and bump my head on the roof for that. But, you know, for the more visual performers that like to dance or they have the lasers, I want the full experience. And fortunately, one of my good friends from undergrad must have saw my tweet about like, dang, man, I want to go to the New Edition show. And she just so happened to already have an extra ticket. So I was like, oh, perfect. So, you know, I'll just pay her for her ticket and then me and her will go together. So it's real dope. So, yes, I get to see New Edition on the 22nd. So I'm ready. Oh, I'm ready. Oh, I'm about to be at that concert acting a fool. Can't wait. It's going to be a good time. I feel like I spent so much money on concerts because I have that one coming up. What else? After that, I'm going to 2 Janet shows. I got my godmom tickets for It's Kim, Music Soul Child, and Legacy. I just got to that. I got the Jill Scott show coming up. There's an After 7 show I'm going to. Me and my good friend, we're going to see Anita Baker. Like, it's going to be a great little spring summer. I'm not spending no more money on any more concerts because I'm going to be living off beans and noodles in a minute. Like, man. But I can't wait. And please, I know y'all know I love Janet. Do not spoil this show for me, okay? I had to purposely mute anything Janet Jackson related on everything that I use on all social media platforms because I always ruin the concert before I go. Every time that I've seen this woman, by the time I got to the show, and that's normally because when she goes on tour, DC is not normally one of the first cities. It's kind of usually one of the in-the-middle shows. By the time she gets to my city, or if she gets to Baltimore or New York, I'll go to one of those 3. At that point, I've seen the whole show on YouTube. I know when the dancers are coming out of what door, what song she's going to sing, I know the whole show. So I was like, you know what? This time, I'm going to challenge myself to actually just get to enjoy the show as like a fan and just enjoy it. So I had to mute everything related to Janet on everything. The song titles, the name of the tour, the name of the dancer. Even Ludacris got muted because they're on tour together. So I have not seen anything from the show minus a picture or 2 that somehow found its way on the platforms. But I don't know what the set list is. I don't know what she's doing, and I love it. I still got like 20 more days. So y'all pray my strength. But yeah, I just want to finally be able to go to a show and just enjoy it. Like just enjoy it without being such a, I don't know. I guess when you really follow certain entertainers, you know, you're just fully invested. And again, this is, you know, the musicality side of me is just really into like looking at the band arrangements. I really like, I always say like her, Mary J. Blige, Maxwell, D'Angelo, well, pretty much all the neo soul artists, but artists like those folks and a few other folks always have really, really good bands to the point where I end up paying attention to who all the band members are and kind of follow which artists they work with and everything like that. And so there's so many elements to a Janet show that I enjoy in addition to just Janet. Like the dancers are always going to be good. And like I said, I like to hear the musical arrangements and how do you present like 40 songs in an hour and a half or 2 hours without it coming off rushed. So I'm excited. I will give a review of that concert and the New Edition concert and every other one I went to after I see it. So don't y'all spoil this concert for me in this chat. If I look at this chat and y'all start telling me the songs in the set list, we beefing. I swear, do not mess this up for me. By the way, I plan to do a review of it. I meant to do it after I saw the movie. I just didn't get a chance to. It's been a crazy week. Check out 1001 when you get a chance. That's that movie with Tiana Taylor. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not going to spoil anything or say much, but I thought she did phenomenal. Really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Now, the movie itself with the plot line, I left uneasy just because I wanted to know more, but her delivery was off the chain. The person that plays the older, let me give him his justice and his just due and get his name right. Let me see, 1 second. What is his name? Gotta make sure I give everybody their credit when the credit is due. Josiah Cross is the person that plays the older version of the son in the movie. He did an amazing job. I mean, everybody did good, but I think he was able to really just connect with his role in a way that was so convincing. So it was like that movie just like tugs at your heartstrings. So I was like, man, that was really, really good. So I will review it a bit more in depth on a separate video. I got to start doing a bit more pre-made content. I'm noticing I'm doing a whole lot more lives just because they're easier to do. But I know a lot of people prefer the actual pre-made content because then you actually get the visuals and everything. Or I could stop being lazy and actually use a different platform to go live on. So you could like StreamYard or something so you could actually add everything in. But we'll see as it comes along. Let me read a few comments before I get into the nonsense because there's a whole lot of foolery going on. I feel like I spent the whole day cussing out people while I was writing on my notes. So, all right, let's see here. Scrolling up. First of all, shout out to, all right, what up, Latoya, Tatiana, Billy Flood. What up, what up, what up? Oh, we got, dang it ain't even been but 7 minutes. How the trolls already here? Y'all be pressed. By the way, there's a certain somebody who thought they were going to try to make a video in response to something I said. Just know I saw that nonsense. I'll deal with you later, but you tried it. Get off, stay out of black people's business. Anyway, yeah, Santino, Calvin, how am I? I'll be all right, but we good. We good over here. What up, MLove05? Yes, happy Tuesday, Abby Wise. What up? Oh yeah, everybody who was at the book club last night, that was a lot of fun. Shout out to the author of the book who actually joined us, which is really, really cool. We've been reading the Phyllis Hyman book. For those who are interested, the next session is on May 15th. Let me just make sure I got it right. May 15th, 9 p.m. We're reading the Phyllis Hyman book, and we're going to be reading chapters 9 through 12 for that session. So like I said, with the book club, there's nothing you have to do. You just click the Zoom link when I post it. And then, we just join in and go chapter by chapter. So for those who were on last night, that was a lot of fun. Great discussion, everybody. What up, Course Correction? What up, Raywin? Avocado Queen, what up, what up? D. Bradford said her energy is so low with everything that's going on. Mine too. Man, it's only Tuesday, y'all. It's only Tuesday. Everything you could think of has already gone down. What up, Chanel? She said she'll watch in the morning. Since I feel like we're about to cover so much heavy stuff. I feel bad because the way that I structured my notes, all the more entertainment related stories are at the end of the live. So we got to get through like 5 heavy, cuss them out kind of stories first. So we'll ride it on through. Raven said, is Bobby Brown okay? Bobby had a stroke or two. So I know with the show, Bobby has to really bring it down a notch just to make sure he's able to get through his set. But, I think from what I saw, because I watched the New Edition set from Essence Festival last summer, they were able to really incorporate everything in a way where you can get the elements of Bobby that you can get, but it's not a lost cause. You know what I mean? It's the voice is there a bit, but you can work around different things. So, you can just give some grace. He did some hard living, so it didn't caught up to him. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be a good show. They give a really fun show too. Those will probably be my 2 favorite shows of the summer, Janet and New Edition. So I'm excited. And Anita Baker. It's going to be a really fun one. All right. Nan said, I can't wait for the conversation about Frank Ocean. Oh, yeah, we'll get to that too. I feel like his musical sophistication has sadly devolved since Channel Orange. Blonde and Endless did not showcase his talent. We will get to him. Okay, I want to go ahead and keep it moving. So please forgive me if I don't get to your comment, just because we got some heavy stuff to cover. But 1 second, hold on. Hey Calvin, I just decided to go to Howard. This is from MB. This fall as a poli-sci major. Oh, that was me as a freshman, but I changed my major after 2 years and went to communications. What's your best advice for a Howard student? Thank you for all your content. I've been subscribed to you since 6th grade. Wow. Y'all are trying to make me old, man. Like, I'm trying to hold on to what's left of my youth. And man, you know, it's crazy. Speaking of college, like one of my kids, they're not even a kid anymore, but they're graduating from Old Dominion on the 6th. So that's already going to be an interesting day, because I'm going to have to drive all the way down to Norfolk, Virginia. And then that's the same night as one of the Janet shows I'm going to. So after I do their graduation, I got to drive back up 3 more hours back up to this side, and then go to Bristol, Virginia, wherever that's at, to see Janet at that show. But it's crazy. Like, I'm starting to get those messages from like kids that I had worked with when they were in 4th and 5th grade, and now they're finishing college, which is kind of cool. But to your question, I think for Howard, and Howard is different from when I went there. It's been a minute. Like, Howard's a very different place from when I went there. But all I'll say is, you don't have to be a strong person. And that's not to like downplay the experience, because I think you'll have a great experience, especially if you're living on campus and you really get the opportunity to get to know folks. I think what I enjoyed about being at Howard was, one, it was in the city. There's one thing about going to college in a college town, but I think there's another thing about going to a college in a metropolitan city, because there's life outside of the campus. You know what I mean? But I will say, the best advice I could give is get a DC experience or a DMV experience and a Howard experience. I think the critique I've had about some people that come out of Howard is they live in that Howard bubble when they get there, and they kind of sometimes forget that there's a world outside of the campus, and it kind of causes somewhat of a divide or a rift between the actual residents of DC, Maryland, and parts of Virginia versus Howard students that sometimes come in there and feel themselves a little bit too much. So fortunately for me, I had family that was already out here, and so I kind of got a best of both worlds when I was at Howard. So if I didn't feel like dealing with campus that day, I had a whole circle of folks that were just specifically DC, Maryland, Virginia folks. So that was kind of a cool thing. And I would say for anybody going to any school, networking is everything. Please don't think that, you know, your life comes together as soon as you graduate. College to me is you're working towards something. And the goal is that by the time you make it to commencement or you make it to that graduation, you're already set up for the next endeavor. I did it wrong. I was playing around. I was having a great time and not going to class sometimes and sleeping in and having a great time. And I still, you know, graduated. But when I graduated, I ain't had nothing together. So I was unemployed for like a year. And so you want to really network. Networking is everything. Like, go to all of those symposiums and networking events and exhibitions and anything they have, go to it, you know, and really connect with folks. And like I said, build a network outside of just the campus. The campus is already going to have a network just connected to everything, but really utilize the space in the area you're in, especially if you're going to be a poli-sci major and you're in DC. Like, everything is right there. Get your internships, go intern at the Rayburn building or somewhere, you know, on the hill, get that time in, and, you know, just get to know folks. But all right, we're going to keep going because I don't want to hijack the whole live, but yeah, pretty cool. All right, guys, thank y'all for these comments. Like I said, I normally go back and reread the live replay after I upload it. And I do apologize because I did not put timestamps on the last live. So my bad. Glam Gal said, why do they force us to watch commercials before a live video when we are late? I have no idea. All I know is when I make the video, I just click the little monetize button and then YouTube does whatever it does after that. So, yeah. Yes, people, somebody made a whole video about me. I said, I guess I've made it on YouTube. People making diss videos now. Okay, all right. All right, let's go ahead and jump into it because we have a lot to cover. So I want to start with, oh, Lord Jesus. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure I got my note here right. I got like 8 pages of notes today. I just want to make sure this is right before we start so I don't leave y'all on the wrong trail here. All right, let's go ahead and start with Ralph Yarl. So as we know at this point, the backstory. The actual shooter has finally been arrested and charged. And now this is an 84-year-old man. So when we go to the backstory, you have Ralph, who was supposed to be going to pick up his younger siblings. You know, he's supposed to go pick up the younger siblings, and he ends up going to the wrong street. He was supposed to go to, I believe he was supposed to go to Northeast 115 Terrace, or 115 Terrace, the street. He ended up going to 115th Street, Northeast 115th Street. So it's kind of like a block or two over. And that happens sometimes. Like I know my grandma's house in Savannah, there's a Northeast 36th Street and there's a Northeast or Southeast 36th Street. And my grandma was on Northeast. And sometimes the people's mail from Southeast would come to our house. So we'd always kind of, have to give each other our mail and stuff. But things like that happen all the time. Or for those in New York, y'all know New York be happening. It'd be like 10th Street, 10th Avenue, 10th Boulevard, 10th Way, 10th whatever, all back to back to back to back. I'm like, this is the most confusing. Man, I know every time I go to like Long Island City, I am confused because they got 15 different versions of the same street. I'm like, this is some stuff. So anyway, he goes to the wrong house, right? And he knocks at the door. Andrew Lester, this is the 84-year-old man, claims that he didn't know if this kid was breaking in and he feared for his life. Those are the talking points they love to use. He feared for his life. And so he pretty much meets him at the door with the gun and shoots him at point blank range in the face, stands over him and shoots him one more time, right? And the interesting part is there were no words exchanged. It was kind of like, it was just like a shoot and ask questions later type ordeal. And then the sad part is for Ralph, who fortunately was still alive, could barely get any help. He's gone from house to house. None of the neighbors want to help. And I think, again, because it's also nighttime and they've heard some gunshots, people are probably scared to open the door. Or the other part is they see somebody black coming. They don't want to open the door for that either, right? And when he finally does get to one of the neighbors who opens the door, that neighbor tells him, okay, well, you need to lie on the ground with your hands up because they don't even know, what it is he's capable of doing. And so he passes out, unfortunately. And there's another neighbor who comes in and is trying to help as well, finally. But the crazy part in all of that, again, is for me, the fact, why did y'all call me while I'm working? I'm sorry, this is my mom. I'm gonna call her back. Sorry, mama. All right. But yeah, like literally, the part that gets me is, again, he gets booked temporarily just for, not even booked, but just brought in for questioning, and they let him go back home and he's chilling. And then again, he's not arrested right away. That kind of kicks in the protest, and that kind of brings in the fallout. And then, because initially they were going to let this just let it all slide. And then eventually here come the charges. But listening to Andrew Lester again, his thing again, he thought the kid was going to break in. He was concerned because of his size. And I'm thinking, okay, well, interesting. Well, what size is he? Because he was talking about him like he was 7'2" or something. But, and even if that's the case, the thing for me that I don't get is you shot him point blank range in the face the first time. Already people are going to have their different viewpoints of that response. But for me, by the time you got to there, once you go and stand over somebody and shoot them a second time and they're already down, all right, the narrative has changed. This is no longer about defense or you being in fear at this point, because now you have power in that situation. You know what I mean? And I think it kind of goes back to where we're at when it talks about stand your ground laws and castle doctrine, because that's probably the defense that they're going to use and utilize. But the thing is, one, they're not going to be able to use the castle doctrine. The castle doctrine is normally when they say, okay, if somebody was in your house or whatever, do whatever. He wasn't in the house. He was out the front door, right? And the stand your ground laws, all the states have different rules of how they want to do stand your ground. There's a bunch of different rules and stipulations with it, depending on where you're at. But for me, I don't even see that as a viable defense either, because we're already in this country that's just super trigger happy already, right? You know what I mean? And the beef that I have, again, is one, you shoot this kid twice, pretty much, you shoot him twice and keep it moving like life is good. Then you have these trifling neighbors who don't want to help. Then you have the neighbor who opens the door, but wants him to still, I guess, de-arm himself by laying on the ground with his hands up. Somebody who comes to you shot in the face and in the arm, and you still see them as a threat. And see, this is where race comes into the picture for me, because, again, everybody recognizes and understands that because of how things have been portrayed in regards to Black folks in media and in these stereotypes that they throw around with us, there's a whole lot of folks who legitimately think that we're always out to go and get what's theirs or take something from them or harm them. And so they don't see the humanity in our existence, even when we're children. Even whether you're women, men, whatever your experience is, people don't see us as human. People see us as a problem that needs to be dealt with. People see us as a threat. People see us as something that they can take advantage of or mutilate or do whatever they want to, because the system will still back and protect them. And this is why you've seen so many cases where people end up in some random situation where white vigilantes go and load up and shoot and do whatever they want to do. And a lot of times nothing happens. And so getting to the stand your ground laws, the beef that I have with the idea of a stand your ground law is it's pretty much created a space where people just get permission to just go and do whatever they want whenever they want to. And usually it's at the expense of black folks because we already live in a space where people are already pressed to want to shoot somebody anyway. Like that, people love the idea of being ready to kill somebody. You know what I mean? Like think of when you see the people who are really, really gung-ho about the Second Amendment. I'm not talking about people who are pressed to carry their 45 or their 9. Okay, shoot, I probably plan on having one at some point. But I'm talking about like the M16, AR-15 brigade, right? Those are the ones who go and take the pictures and, come and try and take my gun. And it's like, well, what's supposed to happen? You gonna kill me if I do? Like, are you that pressed? Are you trying to specifically poke the bear and try to create an environment where you get the opportunity to go and kill somebody? Is that what you really want to do? All right, go for it. If that's what if that's your prerogative. And so you've seen so many stories where people end up in a situation where they kill somebody when they didn't have to. They just really, really chose to go and jump into that far stretch of over the topness and still find a way to kill someone. Like think of it was a story one time I saw it on like Dateline or 2020 where it's the guy, he's pissed off because the neighbors are making too much noise at the party they're having at their lake house. These are all white folks. And so he goes over there to kind of tell them to, turn the music down, but he goes over there with his gun already. And all of the people, because he's older, he's probably not that old, but he's like 50s, maybe 60s. And the people at this party are in their 20s, teenagers and stuff like that. And, he goes over there to tell them to turn it down with his weapon. And they're like, who are you? Like, what the heck? You're tripping. And then he starts all of a sudden, and he's recording it on his phone with his gun. I don't feel safe. I'm moving back. And next thing you know, he gets to shoot, pop, 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 then took out a person or two. Again, that idea of wanting to just take somebody out just because. But getting to my beef with the stand your ground laws, some of the things I just want to share, because what's happening is the laws are never equitable or fair across the board, especially when you bring in the conversation of race. So a Texas A&M study found that when whites use stand your ground law, the defense against black attackers, they are more successful than when blacks use the same defense against white attackers. A paper from the Urban Institute, which analyzed FBI data, found that in stand your ground states, and this is interesting, the use of the defense by whites in the shooting of a black person is found to be justifiable 17% of the time, while the defense when used by blacks in the shooting of a white person is successful 1% of the time. In non-stand your ground states, the shooting of a black person by a white is found justified approximately 9% of the time. And again, the shooting of a white person by a black is found justifiable 1% of the time. So whether the law is active or inactive for black folks, it don't matter. You still going to jail, right? What else was I going to say? According to, and this was interesting as well, according to the Urban Institute, in stand your ground states, white on black homicides are 354% more likely to be ruled justified than white on white homicides, even though they are more common by over 72%. Interesting. I'm gonna leave it at that. Interesting. So yeah, it's interesting that we see the response that exists. And I guess with the guy, the thing for me too, as far as the homeowner, if you were so afraid, why did you open the door? Like if you were so afraid, and you could have just, because the thing is, like, you don't want somebody coming to your house and open the door. Somebody knocks on the door, you don't have to answer. You could have even yelled out, "Get the F off my property" before you get shot. You could have did all of that. But to kind of open the door and just start shooting, that means for me, you saw who was at the door. You went and got your weapon and came back and went and shot. And at that point, you would have been able to decipher and tell, okay, this is some teenager. And again, they've knocked on the door. They're not breaking in. Nobody's going to knock on the door to break in. It's not going to be a ambush or a rampage, whatever. But it just, you don't see, again, that whole system like playing fair. Because then I think of Marissa Alexander. And remember, that was the black woman in Florida who, was in the abusive relationship. She fires the warning shot for the man to leave her alone. And she's sentenced to, a whole bunch of time. She ended up serving about 6 years before they finally, released her. And I think they commuted her sentence. But again, you see that those laws don't really quite work across the board. And a lot of those laws have kind of come into play in the last 20 years. And a lot of them are pretty much oriented in the idea of what I would say is over-policing black folks. Because even when you're talking about the narrative that was created to really enforce a lot of those stand your ground laws, a lot of them are kind of rooted in that good guy versus bad guy argument. And a lot of times the imaging of who the bad guy is, who they are, that's how they kind of paint things. And so I just look at him sideways. I look at the neighbor sideways. Um, and just the fact that the neighbor was still telling him to put his hands up. The kid has been shot in the face. We don't even know if he's going to be alive in the next 2 minutes. And you're still talking about hands up and get on the ground. Like, mm, you know? And again, we're just in a space where people are already just gung ho to want to kill somebody. It's almost like even the white woman in New York, the Kaylin Gillis, who, and I think so many of us have done this before, where you're driving and you take a wrong turn or you need to get on a different street. So you pull into somebody's driveway to kind of turn around, but you had somebody go and kill her, right? Shot and killed her, I think, a few days ago, all around the same time period because she turned and went into the wrong driveway. So we're now in a space where you have so many folks in society who just are on ready all the time. And so even when there's not a viable threat, they will use the laws and use their privilege to justify going out of their way to purposely get in a situation where they have to utilize their weapon according to how they feel in regards to what they thought was, a threat to their safety. And I think that's some nonsense, because now I think, and I fear for kids that have to go and, knock on doors to sell candy bars because their school, they got a field trip to go on. All them kids always got to sell that world's finest chocolate and they go door to door. Or people that sell like the Girl Scout cookies, or people that canvas for, different political candidates and things like that. Like all of that kind of changes everything, because at this point it's anything goes. And so for me, I just think of being a child, and where I grew up, we used to all ride bikes, and our thing was, let's get as many kids outside as we can. And so sometimes we'd be looking for certain friends. We didn't even know which house they were at. We just knew which street they were on. We would go house out. Does Greg live here? Oh no, I'm sorry, he doesn't live. Okay, we get on our bike and go to the next house until we found Greg's house, and all of us go outside to the park. You're now in a space where kids don't even have the leverage to do that, because again, so many people are pressed to want to just take somebody out. And I just think that's chaotic. And I'm going to also say, and this is related but also unrelated, I think folks have to be careful, and this is specifically for us. I think folks have to also be careful with who they start to get behind in regards to different movements, different, active groups that are trying to do things within the collective. Because a lot of times there's a lot of folks who are agents of chaos and stir up a lot of nonsense. I've read a lot of really crazy things about this kid in the last few days, and I'm looking like, I'm trying to figure out the end goal for some of these people who are supposed to be these leaders. This is why I don't get behind nobody blindly. And this is why I tell y'all I'm not a part of no groups. I just take care of me, myself, and I. And, I do my part within the space that I can do it in. But I will also say, too, because a lot of folks, too, because I've seen people, again, also want to bring up, well, y'all only get mad about this, but y'all don't say nothing about the black on black crime. And y'all start bringing up Baltimore and in Chicago and New York. You see Jim Jordan and that crew going to New York and having a whole, committee about the crime in New York, when in reality, crime in New York has gone down in the last year. And when in reality, crime in New York is still lower than it was in the 90s. But again, you create the fear mongering and you pick the idea of all this violent crime. And a lot of times the cities that normally get the big reps, Baltimore, New York, Chicago, it used to be DC before DC started getting gentrified. Notice it's usually the cities that have, a huge population of people that are black or Latino, a lot of times, where white people may be the minority in the city. Those are always the cities that are always going to get the Atlanta, New Orleans, St. Louis. They're always going to be the cities that get the rep. And those are the go-to reflex responses when there's a bigger issue, like, I don't know, police brutality, or a police officer kills somebody black unarmed, or different things that more so are a conversation of a system working against people versus intra-community violence, right? And so people will always be quick to bring up Chicago or whatever. And my response to that has always been, people never seem to care about Chicago until white folks start catching smoke for killing somebody black. And my thing is with that, even if you follow me, I've said a dozen times and a million times over, there are so many groups in all of these different cities that specifically make an effort to work against gun violence within the community. When we're talking intra-community violence, black on black crime, I don't like using that phrase because that's some nonsense. But, there are so many different groups. Even when you go to any video of mine, when you look in the description, for those in DC, I always have the link to Guns Down Friday, which is a group specifically out here in DC in the DMV that they make an effort to try to somewhat remedy the community violence that does exist. And they do backpack drives and health expos. And when there are victims of gun violence, they try to support the families and help with funeral expense. They do all of these different things. And there's all these groups that fight and claw, and there's all these different community marches and different church groups and everything else, but people don't get behind them, or people don't, the money is not there to really back and let them get a larger platform, because people just want to run behind, big name celebrities that can, pull in attention, and then they dip and do whatever else they do. Or people just, want to choose to continue to be naive and pretend that within these neighborhoods where there may be intra-community violence, that all of a sudden everybody's just fine with it. It's just a way of life. No, for decades, people have been fighting and clawing to kind of remedy or end some of the things that do take place. But then again, that's a conversation of also systems doing exactly what they're supposed to do based on how they were intended and how they were built. Like when you talk about the end result of everything that's happened to Black people collectively in a lot of areas, in regards to whether it was eminent domain, whether it's conversational redlining, whether it's, pulling funding from the schools, whether it's closing down all the recreational spaces and the community centers and getting rid of everything that had some element of cultural significance to the neighborhood. And you get these neighborhoods that are now pretty much abandoned. There's no grocery stores, there's no anything. Now you're in a space where it's a conversation of resources. And when you have generations of people grow up in an area where there is nothing to look forward to, there is no element of hope, that you know that the area is abandoned. You watching houses just sit abandoned all week. You can't sit here and expect for people to all of a sudden want to roll out a red carpet for their neighbor every single day, because at this point, it's every person for themselves. And understand that that's not just the experience in Black neighborhoods, because like I said, when you go to these working, poor white neighborhoods, it's the same experience. One of the things that's very interesting, as much as people like to bring up a place like Chicago or New York, when you're talking about the murder rate per capita, theirs are a whole lot lower than other cities across the country, especially when we talk about some of them cities in Ohio, Jim Jordan. All right. Some of those cities like Santa Barbara in California, either San Bernardino or Santa Barbara, one of the two, have a much higher murder per rate capita than a place like Chicago. So it's kind of like folks just be out here saying some nonsense. But I'm going to pause and read some comments. But with Ralph, the good thing is that he has survived. He's in recovery. It's a good thing he survived, but that didn't have to happen. That was some nonsense. And for people trying to say give the old man some grace because he's 84, no, that's not how we're moving around here. I'm sorry. No, there's no grace with that. Especially, again, you standing over him and taking that second shot, there's no grace for that. Plus, he already posted bond anyway. The bond was only $200,000. He only had to pay 10% of it, $20,000. He was, he's at home chilling right now. Nonsense. And they'll sit here and try to give him all this grace. And, well, he didn't know. And they're going to try to paint Ralph to be, some criminal. And, well, Black folks, they be doing all kind of wild stuff. And he was afraid. They're going to paint all the narratives to try to justify everything that happened, because that's the way things work around these parts. So just be ready to see the nonsense. Anyway, skinny kid, that makes no sense. Exactly, Charlene. What thief rings your bell? Like, folks be watching too many movies. Folks be thinking it's going to be a situation you ring the bell and you open the door and then they come and storm in and hold you hostage. And old man, you 84. What in your house do you think that somebody possibly wants? Okay, nobody's going to go in there and steal your MacGyver collection. Relax. Neighbors did not want to help. And the saddest part is when he's running from house to house, he's screaming, somebody help. You know what I mean? And I think when people end up in a situation where it's life and death, there's a difference in the inflections in their voice when we talk about the screams that exist. That's why I was so annoyed during the Zimmerman trial, where me personally, I still believe those audio tapes where you hear the neighbor calling 911 and you hear the screams. To me, that was Trayvon. That was not no George Zimmerman. And they tried to claim, oh no, George Zimmerman was screaming because he feared for his life. I was like, he had the gun. Why would he be screaming if he's claiming, oh, Trayvon was hitting his head on the concrete, which again, the injuries to that don't even add up with that little half of a cut he had on the back of his head. Does not equate to whatever he's talking about. If you're listening to the screams from that audio, those are the screams of somebody that knows they're about to die. And why would they make that kind of scream? Because somebody is sitting on top of them with a gun that they're about to press into their chest and fire with. So, like, cut the nonsense. And so when you saw the trial, that stupid witness that was, on the defense side talking about, oh, well, I knew that was Georgie's voice. They called him Georgie to try to humanize and make him seem really soft. That was Georgie because, we would do different campaigns and we'd stand out holding the signs and we'd all just be out there screaming. I'm like, the inflections in a scream from people who are rallying behind a candidate is not going to be the same kind of inflections or even the same kind of distinction from somebody who's fearing for their life. Cut the crap. People be thinking we stupid. Give me the strength. I'm telling you. I'm just glad he survived. And it's tough that his mom and everybody have to go and do all these press conferences and talk about everything just because, again, people want to act like race is not involved in this and this is just a coincidence. There's no coincidence with none of this. Cut the crap. Not here for it today. All right. Grape shot. Exactly. Just think what would have happened if a Black man shot through his door and hit a white or Asian teenager. He wouldn't have been released. He would have been sent straight to jail. That's the part that gets me. They let folks just go home. Because again, I feel like if there wasn't the social media backlash, if there weren't the people outside protesting at the house, if they didn't get the media's attention, Andrew probably might have got away with it. In the same way, Carolyn Bryant is still living large in regards to everything in regard to Emmett Till. And, oh, well, she's already had a hard life. She'll get to die of old age and be at peace. I'm like, what? Cut the crap. I don't want to hear it. And, the weirdest thing, Andrew probably won't even be here by the time he goes to trial. But, because Father Time might call him on out of here. But, nonsense. Uh, So they said, Calvin, pick up for your mom. I'm gonna call her as soon as, well, shoot, it's gonna be midnight. I will text her and say I'll call her in the morning. I haven't talked to her about twice today already though. So hold on 1 second. Okay. I remember one of these lives she called and I thought I turned the microphone off. Y'all heard our whole conversation. I was like, oops. I'm glad I ain't said nothing crazy. All right. Iron Will said, Black people always have to march and protest for justice to come. I'm tired of it. And my beef with that too is we're marching and fighting for the anomalies. We're not even marching and fighting for the system to do what it's supposed to do. Think of how many cases we've seen where something happens and there's no justice brought. There's so many additional Trayvon Martins or Jordan Davises, or anybody else, or person after person after person after person that we'll never hear about because they didn't get the social media wave. They didn't go viral on TikTok. They didn't, get the independent news media that decided to blow it up. There wasn't the collective outrage that went behind whatever happened, and then they get the national story, and then finally they're like, all right, well, summon a grand jury. It's not the experience for everybody. And so the sad part is, because the system is set up the way it is set up right now, this is how we're always going to move. I hate to say it, but 20 years from now, we'll be doing the same thing. Just like I said that 10 years ago, and we're still doing it, And again, because justice technically in this country it's not set up for everybody. It's set up for a selective demographic here. I'm trying to get my tea. It's not for us, pretty much. So pretty much when you do see police charge here and there, think of everything that has to happen before it takes place in comparison to when it's the other way around, and how quickly and how swiftly everything comes into fruition, how quickly people get charged when it's somebody Black that does something. You know what I mean? It's just interesting. Somebody said my mama should join the live. I don't even think my mom knows. My mom knows I have a YouTube channel, but she don't be watching my stuff like that. She knows I have the podcast, and she discovered the podcast once I talked about the pullover, so I can hit you. But yeah. All right, let's keep it going. JDB Drawl said it's 1000% unjustifiable. The fact that it's any discussion around it shows how insane America is. Yeah, listen, this country is now in a space where it's just the norm for people to just kill. We've gotten to a space where it's just routine and it's standard to be okay to go and just shoot and kill folks. I am all about defending yourself. I'm all about doing what you have to do to survive. But we're now in a space where people are not even in situations where they need to survive anything. They choose to jump into situations and escalate them, and then pull the trigger when they think things may not go their way, or they pull the trigger right off the bat just because, and they know that a system will back them. They know that depending on what it is they've done, Americans will rally behind them and donate to their defense fund and put millions of dollars behind their name. Kyle Rittenhouse, George Zimmerman, and so stupid. All right. Here we go. There's zero evidence that it was racially motivated. We don't have to be 100% on the nose at this point, because at this point, when you've seen a certain pattern continue, it is what it is. And even if the shooting was not racially motivated, the fact that the police did not charge this man right off the bat and he got to go back home for days and days and days, and it wasn't until there was mass hysteria around the shooting, that right there is a problem in regards to when we talk about race within the judicial system. So there's multiple layers. Anyway, y'all love to move the goalposts when it comes to Black folks. Now, when it's Black folks, we got to sit here and cross every T and dot every I and solve a Rubik's Cube in order for y'all to see race in something. Y'all will just sit here and the very person who decided to make their whatever video they wanted to make in response to something I said did the exact same thing, was over here like, well, you need to do this and need to do that, need to do this. Whatever. I don't want to hear it. Anyway. Yes, Jonathan Ferrell all over again. Somebody said they better not blame cognitive issues like dementia and let that. Oh, I mean, he had perfect aim. The dementia wasn't working then, right? Perfect aim, right? Good. It's a miracle he survived. I'll say that. Dana Allen says stand your ground is, but not for black folks. It's really not for us. It's really to work against us, and that's how I've always felt. You've just seen so many, especially, and you've seen an increase in the amount of shootings that try to use that as a justification in like the last 10, 15 years. Um, yeah, it's definitely aimed at one specific group of folks, and it goes back to what I've been saying, where within this country, especially when it comes to trying to maintain that certain status quo as far as, a white power structure, there's going to continue to be that same effort where either they go after education, they go after policy, or they use violence. And so you keep seeing it, right? And again, he's 84, so you're not gonna sit here and act like he's just always been pro Martin Luther King. He probably might have been one of the folks throwing bricks at the Little Rock Nine back in the day. I don't want to hear it. Um, all right. Somebody said the neighbors are upset because people threw eggs at the killer's window. Look, be happy the house was still standing. That's all I'm saying. Sometimes all right, let me stop right there. But be happy the house is still there. That's all I'll say. Um, Course correction said Andrew Lester's grandson said he's gotten lost going to see his grandpa and has gone to the wrong house. It's likely happened often, but it shouldn't have been disturbing to Andrew. Like again, it's so normal sometimes where people end up at the wrong address. That's why I don't be stopping. I be trying to not stop in random places. Like especially if I do any road trips, especially on this side of the country, and especially if I'm going south, like I don't be stopping in no random places until I'm at like a real city, or like there's certain little towns I just drive straight through. Like sometimes, like I got a friend that lives in Warsaw. If I go down there to visit them, I'm not stopping. It's a straight shot. We ain't getting no gas. We not stopping to get a slushy nowhere. We just gonna go straight there. And once we get to certain areas, once you start seeing all them Confederate flags and stuff, I was like, let me drive the speed limit and everything else, because yeah, I don't have time. Like it's, I don't know, and it sucks that has to be people's reality. You know what I mean? Um, Somebody said they don't trust my sources. Okay, well, go look it up. Like, go look it up. I even said what the source was, so you go ahead and look it up. I'm not about to sit here and fight with y'all on this. White folks always want to come in here and try to police how people respond and stuff. They love to police black folks calling out stuff. They want us to just shut up. All right. Anyway. Um, and y'all are going in. That's a good, interesting point of Philly cheesesteak. I fear for DoorDash / Uber Eats folks and other black delivery drivers. I never thought about that. You know, that is interesting. Even kids, I'm thinking of Halloween when the kids go trick or treating. Like, man, that's gonna be that, or like Dana Allen said, even when people do census every 10 years. Interesting. Wow, folks are real paranoid around here. All right, I'm gonna keep going because we have some other bits on here. Y'all are lighting. Ooh, y'all going in. Right. Somebody said, oh, the Real Aries Kid May said, black on black crime is a shut up and dribble racist trope. Nowhere on the continent of Africa would you hear that phrase. I just don't like the idea of trying to paint that narrative. Oh, and listen, the numbers, I don't feel like going over them, but go to my Breonna Taylor video. I specifically went straight into numbers and numbers and numbers and numbers. But the conversation in regards to that is, like I said, people use it as a reflex. And again, people, when you're talking about people who are most likely to be killed by somebody, they're most likely going to be killed by somebody they're in a relationship, somebody they have some kind of connection with, somebody they know, somebody they work with. And a lot of times there's this narrative that the idea of black on black crime, people like to say, yeah, black people are just killing each other because they're black. I'm like, that makes no sense. So a lot of times you're seeing proximity killings where there's some kind of situation, whatever, blah, 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 something happens. And that proximity becomes a conversation of just how our country was set up, because the country decided to segregate everything, because the country decided to redline cities and set up spaces where black folks live and white folks live. You now have pockets of people who live within proximity of each other, and they become they're connected through like their own intra community. So in the same way you talk about black on black crime, it exists in the same realm that white on white crime would exist. And when you're talking the numbers, based on the numbers that are reported, white people kill each other at a rate of about 86, 87%. Black people do at a rate of about 91, 92%. But the discrepancy within that also comes in to the point where you talk about reporting, and when you talk about who's actually convicted at higher rates for the same crime, then you start to see some discrepancies within the numbers. So I do think the numbers are actually a little bit closer than what they are. But most people are going to end up, if they end up killing someone, it's somebody they have some kind of connection with. And because the country is still somewhat segregated, most likely it's going to be somebody who, again, is in close proximity to whatever your experience is. So if the country is still laid out and mapped out in a way where it's segregated, of course you're going to see people become victims of crime by somebody who looks just like them because they come from the same experience, because a lot of times they're fighting for the same resources, or they have some kind of shared experience, even if that shared experience is something that triggers one person to be violent. And that's why if you watch the ID channel, half the time you see a bunch of white folks killing each other all day, right? But you don't see them be painted as the face of white on white crime, because they don't even use that as a phrase. It's not even a thing. And that's with any community, no matter what community it is, whether you want to talk about the Native Americans that live amongst each other, they have a high crime rate amongst each other because of proximity. The same way if you go into some Latino communities, the exact same thing. So folks just, folks like to latch on to certain talking points. Now, does that mean that there is not an issue with intra-community violence? No, it does not mean that. I still think that's something that would need to be addressed, but that can't always be the go-to response to something else, because again, multiple things can be true at once, and folks can definitely walk and chew gum at the same time. But people tend to only care about the idea of intra-community violence as a response to kind of quiet a conversation about systemic racism and how systemic racism creates a space where Black people are collateral to white aggression. Anyway, there's that. But yeah, if you want some numbers, go to my Breonna Taylor video. I had all the charts and stuff on there. I ain't doing it tonight. Okay. Yeah, even the Cash App CEO we just saw get stabbed up. Like, please. All right. Okay. I want to keep going because I've said that like 10 times now. Oh God, Rainy J, I forgot about that. The UPS driver being attacked. And it wasn't just that one. When you think all those FedEx and UPS drivers that have to go into these certain towns and folks, they're getting met with shotguns. People are crazy. Okay, we're going to move on. But thank you guys for the commentary in the chat. Fox News, let's get to them. All right. So as we know, Fox News has been involved in two major lawsuits, right? They have the Dominion lawsuit, and they have, it's called Smartmatic lawsuit. Now that Smartmatic lawsuit is for $2.5 billion. That one is still, being processed and in litigation. It hasn't even really kicked off like that yet. But just to give some backstory, as we know, Fox News is a news network that tends to lean a lot more to the right, a bit more appealing to conservative Americans. It's also the most watched news network in the country. And as of February 2023, it was still the most watched news network. Right. And so let's backtrack. We get to the 2020 election. Now, Fox News has been notorious for constantly just putting out any and everything and passing it off as news. Right. Even to the point where in some lawsuits, you had somebody like Tucker Carlson say, his show, it's not news, it's not journalism, it's for entertainment. That way he could kind of cover himself for a separate lawsuit that was taking place. Right. And so we get to 2020. It's the election. Now, like I said, on probably the last few conversations I've had about the election or Cuckoo Man, he already does this thing where he tries to paint the big giant conspiracy that everybody's working against him and that the election was rigged. He did that in 2016, even before he won. He was running around with this is the biggest scam in history, and Obama was a part of this big giant scam, and this is the biggest, sham in history, and they're going to try to take it away from him, painting that narrative where just in case he loses, he can latch onto that and create the big lie. He didn't have to really do it in 2016 because he won, right? We get to 2020. He's already doing that before the election. Before November came, there were already the conversations about, they're trying to take it from us again and blah, 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 blah. We get to the election. It's a different year because, of course, COVID is the thing. There are a ton of people who have done mail-in ballots. And in most states, when you're talking about how they count the ballots, they always count what's on site first, and then the mail-ins come in last. And some of that also has to do with some of the policy that was put out there. Like one of the laws that they tried to push in Pennsylvania, which got shut down by the Supreme Court, was that they wanted to make a rule where everything had to be counted on election day, and whatever was not counted on election day did not count. That was done on purpose because they recognized and knew that, okay, there's going to be a ton of absentee and mail-in ballots. And they made a rule where the absentee and mail-in ballots could not be counted until election day. So even though all these mail-in ballots are coming in after early voting and they're piling up and piling up, no, we can't count them. And then they said, we'll count the actual ballots from the machines first. So we'll do those and then we'll get to the mail-in. And so they tried to say, oh, election day stopped, so we can't count the rest, but they lost in court, and that's how Pennsylvania was able to stay blue. But then you get to Arizona, which was a state that was really, really close. At this point, it's days after the election. Nobody knows who's going to win this thing, but, Georgia is still up in the air. Michigan has gone blue. Wisconsin is going blue. Arizona's up in the air. You're waiting for that one big county that's left. Fox News makes the call and says, all right, Arizona has gone to Biden, right? And so what ends up happening is Fox News catches a bunch of smoke. And it's so interesting because this is almost like the same thing that happened in the year 2000, but just almost in reverse. So backtracking for 1 second, I know I'm going off topic, but when you talk about the Gore-Bush election in 2000, what was very interesting is remember when they called Florida for Gore? They had already called Florida for Gore. The news networks were reporting it. You get Karl Rove, who's like, nope, I'm not accepting that. And he pretty much contests the result on live TV. And then, I can't remember which network switched up first, but one network was like, okay, well, let's take Florida back off the map. We're going to take it off. It's no longer called for, it's no longer called for Gore. We're going to take it off the map. And then another network starts, and then all the networks start pulling Florida, and Florida and them 24 votes back in 2000 are no longer blue. And then it goes to everything that we saw in regard to the contested voter, ballots and the chat and the this and the that and all of that. But getting back to my point. So Fox News starts catching all this smoke because at this point, going to 2020, Fox News calls Arizona for Joe Biden, which pretty much means Biden pretty much wins the election, right? Fox starts getting emails. Viewers are pissed off. How dare you? Because again, they were the first, and then the other networks follow suit. And this becomes a conversation of ratings, right? And so because money talks, like one of the reasons why Fox News has been able to be so successful, even though they be out there just saying any and everything, they have a ton of advertisers that are behind them because they know they're going to get return on investment. So even when they do have, people that are commentators that just be up there saying any and everything, a lot of times they're not going to pull their advertising because they're making too much money. There's too much money to be made. So money talks. And so what ends up happening, because there's so much smoke for Fox News, and now people are kind of jumping and getting behind some of the other networks like the OAN network or what is it, News? Is it Newsmax? Yeah, there's a bunch of additional ones that are out there, right? Fox is slowly starting to lose some viewers here and there. They're going to the other networks because they feel like Fox News has sold out, right? And Trump is saying Fox News was never fair to him to begin with, blah, 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 blah. And so Fox News decides, well, we have to find a way to make sure we don't lose our viewers. So they begin to endorse the idea of what you call the big lie. The big lie that the election was stolen. The big lie that, Dominion voting machines were rigged and they were stealing votes and making votes for Biden. And then you get all of these random crazy conspiracy theories and, Hugo Chavez, who has been dead for years, had something to do with it. And there were Italian, this and space lasers and all these different things that were done to steal the election. And what does it do? Like what I've said before, and I said this a few lives ago, a lot of the people that watch Fox News recognize half the stuff that's coming out there is not true, but it's comforting because it tells a narrative of what people want to hear, especially those who are, 100% behind the idea of maintaining that status quo as far as a white power structure, through a white lens. So Fox News tells them everything they want to hear. People are going to watch a news presentation that tells them something that gives their comfort levels, just elements of contentment. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the same way. If you're very left-leaning, you're probably watching MSNBC, but the difference is Fox News just gets to say anything. Nothing happens, right? You know what I mean? And so they pretty much run with this lie and people get behind it. And what does it do? It creates this mass hysteria. And then you get more people who buy into it. And, they're spearheading this movement. You get Rudy Giuliani and he's saying his thing. You get the pillow guy and you get all of these random people who jump on this, and there's press conferences and there's all these different things. And it continues to stir up rage within the voters who were really behind somebody like Trump. Right. And now they feel, yeah, this must be true. Somebody stole the election and now they want to be violent. And it's time for civil war. And we fast forward, we get to January 6th. All those crazy things happen, so on and so forth. But pretty much Dominion as a company, their integrity and their livelihood as a company is now shot because the entire country, or at least those who want to buy into the idea of the big lie, are convinced that Dominion voting systems rigged the election. Right. And it's interesting because when you watch the town halls, for a lot of congressmen that had to go and do their town halls around January, right before, the inauguration. You're watching them try to say, okay, guys, the election wasn't rigged. And you see the constituents and the stakeholders in these seats like, no, Dominion, Dominion. People who've never heard of Dominion before, all of a sudden know that Dominion is some company that rigged the election, right? And so it destroys the livelihood and credibility of Dominion as a company. So they say, F that, we're going to sue y'all. So they sue for $1.5 billion, which brings us to today. So the trial was supposed to start today. However, there has been a settlement that was reached. And the settlement is for $787.5 million, which is still a lot. But for me, I really wanted to see them just push the trial all the way through. But I think Fox News decided to settle because had they gone on trial, that would have exposed all of the nonsense that goes on behind the scenes. Just based on the emails and everything that were already kind of finding its way to the media, all of these people who would have had to go on the witness stand, Laura Ingrams and Tucker Carlson's and all them, would have had to admit under oath that they know that they were up there lying about a lot of things and that they were pretty much saying things in regards to maintaining that their ratings stayed up, and to ensure that they would not piss off the demographic that continued to support the network, and that they could find a way to win back the viewers that left Fox News and went to some of the other networks that were, a bit more appeasing to the ear, right? And so I think that's the part that sucked. I would have loved to see that 1.6 billion get paid out. But then again, I think even for Dominion, which is a company that I think was only worth about $30 million beforehand, getting a $780 million check, I'm sure they're like, well, let's go ahead and take the money. But I think with that being said, the crazy part is it doesn't even really affect Fox News like that. Even if they had to pay the 1.6 billion, they have so much revenue coming in. I think Fox News makes about $4 billion a year. They got so much revenue coming in, they would have still found a way to bounce back. And even with the settlement they're getting now, that's only like when you take into account, what's happening on the stock market and what their shares are, because their shares I think are about 30 something dollars. That's only about $1.50 off of the shares they have right now. So really, that $787 million is just going to make a dent. But I would like to see what's stipulated within the settlement. Like, do the anchors have to acknowledge, yeah, we played into this and people have literally died because of our nonsense. I want to see like where all of that goes. You know what I mean? Because it's just like you think of the movements that were created from just the results of 2020, but as a network, they've lied and just put so many things out there. I mean, even where do you think the idea of like Obama being whatever they said about him, he was a Muslim terrorist from Kenya, all that, people buy into all that stuff, right? And so it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I'm interested to see the Smartmatic suit as well, because that one's for 2.5 billion as well. But it's just interesting. Money talks. And that's why even with Fox News, I look at, again, the advertisers that never really pulled their funding because, again, money talks. So those who, again, are willing to compromise their integrity for a check, which is why, again, when it comes to mainstream media, it's hard to sometimes get behind any network because a lot of them are bought out. We see CNN and the nonsense they're dealing with, right? And how much they've kind of caved. Even MSNBC has tried to cave a few times. Remember, they brought on, what's the lady's name? She was from Fox News too, but it didn't last long. They brought her on for about a week. I can't think of the lady's name, but she came from Fox to MSNBC. I was like, yeah, because they were trying to as well appease to the demographic that was putting in the resources in regards to who was watching. They said, let's tap in and see if we can get some of that right-wing viewership as well. So it's interesting. Money talks. And so, and as far as our media and our journalism, the idea of integrity right now is not a thing, because again, everybody's just here to collect their checks. So tell the Americans anything and just so be it. But we'll see. I think we're going to see more things like this go down the pipeline. Like, look at just the fact that this was a suit that was, I think it went on a docket in 2021 and it was just now going to trial. And again, right when everything was there, all the evidence was there to expose some folks, they said, let's just go ahead and settle. Let's go ahead and settle. Because I mean, thousands of pages of documents and evidence that was going to end the network. And I think the network was smart by going ahead and settling because it will help them to keep somewhat of the livelihood or the notoriety that they have with their viewership by not having their anchors go on, under oath and admit to lying. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. I wanted to see Tucker Carlson get cross-examined as well. That would have been some good entertainment. Hot mess. Who are y'all cussing out now? Y'all be going in. All right. Well, at least it ain't me. All right. The Real Aries Kid says they have a problem with woke like I have with the word fox. Yeah, the thing with Fox is they let so much nonsense fly. And especially when it comes to race, I'm just like, y'all don't even try. You know what I mean? Like, man, somebody said every time I call 45 Cuckoo Man, an angel gets his wing. Look, all the angels should be flying at this point. Um, Somebody said Fox News is gonna have to start an OnlyFans account. They're not even like Fox News is gonna bounce right back from this. That's the crappy part. Unless this other lawsuit really kicks in and really affects their bottom line for the next 2 budget years, I don't really see Fox News really having any demise. Because again, they say the things that a lot of Americans want to hear, specifically white Americans. Like they say what they want to hear. So you're not gonna see too much shift, in my opinion. Um, all right. Belize Gal 80 said, it shocked me about Arizona because it's a red state. But really what Arizona really did, well, no, actually, I'll say Arizona was a little different because, yeah, a lot of places, even when you're talking 2020, Republicans also did down ballot. I know there was the movement for a lot of folks to say, oh, do down ballot, for all the local elections and everything, but try to teach a lesson to the Democrats by not, voting for the other guy, Biden. But Republicans ended up having the same strategy where they voted for Biden, but then still voted Republican for everything else. They just were tired of Trump. So it was interesting to see how that kind of went down. Um, anyway, somebody said, what was our first election? My first election was '08. That was the first one I was. Well, no. The 2006 midterms was my first election I voted in. But '08 was the first presidential election I could vote in. KO said that sounds like a plot from Scandal. Scandal had a whole episode like that. Remember? Yeah, they had a whole episode about that. Um, as far as like the machines being rigged to kind of steal. I remember that episode. All right, we're gonna keep it going. Grape Shot said, and apparently the ghost of Hugo Chavez interfered with the election. That just some nonsense, right? I was like, what y'all? That's the weird thing. Like, I understand people don't like whoever's in charge. No matter who's in charge, somebody's gonna be mad. You know what I mean? If things were to shift in a way that I would like it to go, and the right kind of people were in office, there would still be people on the other side of the argument pissed off. And so when you see people that are pissed, but they latch onto anything just to kind of create a sensationalized bad guy or the sensationalized enemy, like space lasers and Hugo Chavez, who's been dead for years, he had something to do with it. I'm like, the man been dead for years. You think he knew that Biden and Trump would have been the nominees and they were going to run? And so Venezuela would have no anything to gain by whether it was Trump or Biden in office, because Venezuela and the United States don't really have the best working relationship anyway. Crazy. Yeah, Fox News. We need more independent media. We definitely need more independent media. Because again, all the major news networks are bought out, and you get bits and pieces that are truthful and with integrity, but you also get a lot of fluff, and you get a lot of things that also benefit, people that have specific interests that line their pockets. So it's hard to get behind any news network. It's hard to get behind even a lot of the publications. You're seeing a lot of them get exposed for what they really are. So it's like, sucks. Okay. Y'all in here lighting up Joe Biden too. Yeah, let him get a little smoke as well. Past that, I already said he don't need to run for re-election. I don't know who should be the next candidate, but I do think he should pass the torch. And I'm only saying that because I think with the direction that the country is headed in, you need somebody who is going to be in a space where they can even perform to do what is needed. And they have to be in a space where they understand the language of multiple demographics. I think Joe has done what he can do, but he, to me, he should never been a candidate to begin with. You go back to my lives in 2018 when he announced his candidacy, and I said, oh Lord, here we go. So when it got down to the wire and it was him and Cuckoo Man, I said, damn it. This is not fun. All right. This is not how this crap is supposed to be. Anyway, we're gonna keep it going. Yeah, I just think to put some new energy in there. If Joe has any integrity, pass the torch, and the time would be now because it's already election season, pretty much. And it's not saying I don't know. I don't see it for him. Sorry. If it gets down to the wire and it's between him and Cuckoo Man from Florida or Cuckoo Man from Florida, DeSantis or Trump, for me, it would still be, I'd still have to settle with Biden, but I don't want him. Sorry. That's another conversation. Anyway, oh, this stupid idiot. Let's get to Governor Abbott out of Texas, right? So I don't know if you've seen the story. There was a guy, Daniel Perry, who ran over some protesters and killed some protesters. This is going back to like 2020, where again we saw America's response to police brutality, where rather than hearing out the cries of the people who are saying, "Hey, there are flaws in this system. Something must be done. We can't keep continuing in this same manner where these things happen over and over again, and then there's no response, there's no accountability, and people try to justify the nonsense." You start seeing massive uprisings, not even just in the United States, but around the world. Just imagine the fact that after the situation with George Floyd took place, with Derrick Chauvin and everything, the fact that there were protests in Australia, in Sweden, Germany, Mexico, Canada, where else? France, the UK, South Africa, like people all around the world saw what was happening and were like, enough is enough, right? And the fact that that was not enough for people to say, and I'm talking about those in charge, okay, let's correct what is wrong. Rather than doing that, it was like, okay, let's just be more punitive to the people who have something to say. So we're going to create all these laws where it's okay for people to run folks over or shoot protesters or do whatever they needed to do. And so you get Daniel Perry, who ends up killing some protesters. And then you have Governor Abbott in Texas, who even before the case around Daniel Perry was even settled, he was already planning, I'm going to pardon him. You have to question and ask, what message is that actually sending? And pretty much it shows you where these people stand, right? There's a piece I wanted to read because I just kind of want to piece together who it is that Abbott is planning to pardon, right? It's the stupid nonsense. All right, so let me see. These are from the text messages that Daniel Perry had been like putting out there. Now, these were released after everything was put out. But okay, this is between Daniel Perry and some dude named Justin Smith. "I might have to kill a few people on my way to work. They are rioting outside my apartment complex." That right there should end the conversation of any kind of pardon. He already had the intent to kill, right? He's already been, mind you, he's been found guilty and everything, but Abbott wants to give him a pardon. Justin says, "Can you legally do so?" Daniel says, "If they attack me or try to pull me out of the car, then yes." Daniel Perry, "If I just do it because I'm driving, then no." Justin Smith, "Yeah, right, LOL." Justin Smith then says, "Make sure to use I only shot the protester. I'm sorry. Make sure to use only I shot what? Oh, make sure to I'm sorry. Make sure to use only one shot on a protester. So if they try to flood you, you got enough rounds for them all." Daniel Perry says, "I will only shoot the ones in front and push the pedal to the metal." Justin, "You got that much control over your bloodlust." Justin also says, "LOL, boy, you have matured. All you would what? All you would beat the F out of them, then rape a few." We're getting spicy now. Daniel Perry says, "Look, I will probably barely have ammo left over with this tactic I have to conserve my ammo for the trip back home." Daniel also says, "No protesters go near me or my car." Justin says, "Can you catch me a Negro daddy?" Wait a minute, what kind of conversation they having? Wait a minute, time out. Oh, okay, all right. And Daniel says, "That's what I'm hoping." Justin says, "Yay." White folks are so fucking weird. All right. Next one. A review, let me flip this over. Y'all know I'm blind. A review of Daniel Perry's cell phone extraction revealed native messages exchanged between Daniel Perry and again, Justin Smith. Outgoing message: "I killed a homeless man by accident." Outgoing message: "The police already know and they let me go." Justin, huh? It got a lot going on here. What else did they say on here? Outgoing message: "Am I racist for thinking the way the Black Lives Matter movement is a bunch of monkeys flinging S-word at the zoo due to the fact that they demand white people giving their houses to a poor Black family, and the way their protests always seem to turn violent?" Outgoing message: "For example, my parents own a 4-bedroom house, and the Black Lives Matter movement believes that my parents should give up their house to a poor Black family and pretty much live in a 1-bedroom house that they should buy with the money they don't have." Folks just making up some stuff. All right. And then last piece, a review of Daniel Perry's cell phone extraction revealed that's the same thing. Okay. "I might go to Dallas and shoot some looters." So again, looking at this, right now, there have been, a lot of backlash and everything. But again, just looking at this goes back to what I was saying earlier, where people are so pressed to want to find a reason to kill somebody. Like that's where we're at now. So again, imagine the idea of somebody's politics don't align with yours, so you want to just go kill them, right? People that are protesting, out there marching, singing, and doing whatever they do. Here you come. You want to go run them over. You want to go shoot at them. You want to do whatever you want to do because you feel justified in it. And you've created this narrative where, oh, it's because again they want to take what's mine or whatever. And it goes back to that idea of that whole boogeyman conversation and that idea I've had where I talk about equity, where for a lot of people in white America, the idea of equity or equality means that white people would lose something, which is a threat to their livelihood. So again, by any means necessary, here comes the violence. So he comes and paints this whole narrative about, they want to take my house. Nobody said they taking your house. And if that's in response to conversations around reparations, it's interesting to see how naive and how ignorant people like to choose to be in regards to those conversations, right? Just again, I can't. Let me pause and read some comments. But I don't understand how y'all haven't slashed the tires on Hot Wheels yet. I don't get it. Like, y'all let a bot just do whatever he wants. I don't get it. The way, and I hope I don't sound ignorant, but I'm sorry. Them tires on the wheelchair would have been sliced a long time ago, and I would have took the stairs and the ramp off the porch. He would never leave the house. Like, sorry, he's just doing some nonsense. It's just we have so many people in power who are just there's not even an element of decency with how they do things. There's just this element of cruelty and this element of just pride and ego to be just terrible people. Like it's like a badge of honor to be horrible. I can't. Huh. All right. Anyway, Nikita Clark said, and then protests during a pandemic at that. Yeah, and that was even when people still didn't even understand the pandemic all the way. So you had, folks was outside with the masks and stuff on in 90-degree weather. Like folks were still trying to, that's just how chaotic things had gotten. People were tired. Even the Amish were protesting. Thank you, KO, for that. Somebody said they were protesting in Japan. Carbro said, Republican voters are interesting. They vote for the party that is stripping away their democratic rights, public pensions, Medicare, etc. It's interesting to watch from Canada. It just goes back to, again, that conversation of the status quo, where white America is going to continue to vote, even sometimes against their own interests, if it means that somebody else is getting less than them. That's how I've seen it at this point. And so, and then when the stuff comes to their front door, then they be panicking. So think back in 2017, right? At that point, you had Republican House, Republican Senate, Republican in office as far as Trump. And they were, trying to push the legislation to pretty much gut and get rid of Obamacare. And then all the white folks started panicking and having town halls and crying and everything. I was like, no, this is the same thing y'all wanted to get rid of. Don't try to back down now. They were panicking. They were nervous. And so that's why the stuff didn't pass, because there were too many people in a lot of working poor neighborhoods. I'm talking about rural America that realized that, with the kind of careers or the jobs that they had, they would not have adequate health care for what it is that they had, especially people that had pre-existing conditions and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's interesting. People will, they will give up everything to see somebody else do worse than them. Because again, the idea of equality is something that challenges privilege. Privilege can't exist in a space where everything is fair. Rape Shot said, yeah, he's pretty much another Rittenhouse. Exactly. And let me, what got me with Abbott or Bot, whatever his name is even when you look at the fact that, when you talk about what caused his injury, and he had the big lawsuit and got all that settlement money, and then when he got into office, he created the laws where there was going to be limitations on the kind of settlements people can get. Like, that's just how terrible of a person he is. So you benefit from a certain experience, and then you close the door behind you so nobody else can have that experience. Like, that's the kind of stuff that it's just like, why do y'all put these people in office? You know what I mean? And this is why I say, like, paying attention to local politics is everything. Said pardoning from a governor gives no security from the people, pretty much. Because at this point, a lot of these, a lot of these pardons, even when you look at some of the folks that have gotten pardoned by the previous president, I'm just like, did you even? I'm sorry. I'm gonna leave it alone. I don't even feel like bringing that person up because that's gonna be another fight on here. I don't feel like doing it tonight. I'll do it on another day. But yeah. Somebody said, this is not funny, but your reading got me weak. Like, man, I'm trying to read it and make sense of what's being said and try to put stuff in the right context. Folks are just on some weird stuff. Goodness. Mm, mm, mm. The premeditation in the text, exactly, Billy Flood. It's right there in our faces. You just, and at this point, again, that's just speaking in code. That's him. That's a bot just pretty much saying, "I got y'all," and you know who the y'all is. So y'all stick with me. We gonna all be good. We gonna again do any and everything. It's crazy. All right, V Power. I hear what you're saying, but I have to disagree with you. Where you're talking about the F voting, it doesn't benefit us for the most part. If you're talking from a standpoint of the big giant general elections, I could almost hear that. But again, the local portions is where the ball has been dropped for years and years and years. And this is why we're now in a space where we have to constantly be on the defense against everything. Because I've said for a few years, the goal, especially of those, especially like the GOP and a lot of like white nationalists, the goal has always been cement and lock in, right? Maintain the status quo, get people in certain positions to lock things in permanently. And when you look at everything that's happening, when you look at books that are being banned, libraries being defunded, even with some of the abortion rules and laws that are out there. I just saw what DeSantis just signed in regards to now, even if you are a victim of incest or rape, you have to prove that you've been raped or that you're a victim of incest to still go and get, any additional care as far as like abortion if you choose to get one. Like all of these different things, these are a result of, again, nobody really paying attention to what was happening at the local level. Even when we talk about this sheriff that I'll get to in Oklahoma and the nonsense with that. Like, understand that a lot of sheriff positions are elected positions. When you talk about judges that are put into office, they come from elected positions and everything like that. And so the challenge I think that exists is our politics in the United States is going to always be kind of jacked until you take money out of politics, because a lot of times politicians are never going to be able to really do what it is they fight for, what they really would like to do, because they end up so bought out. And a lot of times the people that we see in office are the bought out candidates. The candidates that would have been really, really, really good, that would have been really great, never make it to the main stage because there wasn't enough money for them to get the exposure, which is why I don't like the idea of money in campaigns. Or I think personally, if anybody runs for any kind of office, everybody should be given the same budget, the exact same budget. Because I think or they should be given the same exposure in media. I think that changes the playing field. And I think you should also take lobbying groups out of politics, because I don't think it's fair to put money into a candidate's pocket so that they can ensure that they're going to fight for whatever it is that you're fighting for, whatever group you're a part of. But local elections to me are everything, especially when you're talking about school boards and everything. They carry a lot of weight. I think a lot of times we look at the bigger picture and people assume, okay, if you put Biden in office and you got a Democratic House and Senate, or if you're on the other side of the argument, you put, I don't know, whatever Republican wants to run and you get a Republican House and Senate, that everything will align that way. But really, to me, the House and the Senate and the president, that those are all the end results of everything that's leading up from the local level, and they finally find their way to the big stage. But everything else at the local levels has already been cemented. So even when you talk about um that abortion pill that's currently, they have to stay on. Think about how, again, you have a judge that was elected or appointed by somebody who was elected. They pretty much put a stay on something that's been approved by the FDA and has been in use for years and years and years, and pretty much has been precedent in response to how people choose to, go about that conversation in regards to abortion, right? And so a judge in one state makes a decision that now affects everybody, possibly. Like, so everything is still connected. But I will agree with you in the point where I think we're taken advantage of by a lot of people in power, and we're taken advantage of by a lot of people who run for office and promise a bunch of different things. And then it's the same game. Like, when you think about it, we've been sitting in the same nonsense for decades. I do think things are crazier now, but in regard to the entire livelihood of Americans, to me, it's been a disaster since at least the 70s or the 80s, and it's only gotten worse. And because now we've created a space where people are almost cult-like with the politicians they get behind, there's now a pocket of the population who they will never move on anything. They're going to always align with the craziest thing because, again, it's ear candy to them. So the type of like Marjorie Taylor Greene folks, you're going to have people who are going to 100% move in that realm. and 100% operate in that way, where they think this is all a game and this is all just, we can just do anything and nothing will affect us collectively. So let's just go in here and stir up everything and have no purpose behind any of our policy. Let's just jump and do whatever we want to do. And let's just put some of the most uneducated people in charge of everything. Let's put people in charge of things that they have no range to manage. And then again, as things get worse, then we go and blame the other people, so American politics is a freaking headache. I 100% hear you on that, but I don't align with the idea of not voting, especially when people talk about conversations of reparations. Okay. I don't know what kind of reparations people think you're going to get if you just kind of tap out and let a bunch of loony folks get up in there, and folks who already don't think that you've gone through anything that's worth even getting an apology for. Those are not going to be the people that ever agree to sign off on any kind of legislation for any kind of reparations. And even with that being said, in the event that reparations becomes a thing, it's going to always be an uphill battle if it's ever implemented, because there's always going to be legislation working against it to strip it down. People that are going to be fighting to undo it, or they want to add other groups to the reparations package. And before you know it, now the people that were Irish are going to be getting in on some too, and so on and so forth. And so you're always going to need somebody in your corner to represent what it is you're fighting for, unfortunately. Like, that's just the way things are. So I personally don't agree with just sitting out, because we've seen what happens when folks don't show up. But it is what it is, Um, but I also really believe, like I said, really focusing at the local level. For me, local is everything. Pay attention to what's happening on your block. Start there. All right. Yeah, they've cemented so much stuff in gerrymander, so many districts. Some of these folks are never going to get kicked out of office. They're going to always be in there. All right. Billy Flood said, what about when the anti-maskers were protesting to have mask mandates removed with their AK-47s at the state capitol? Oh, I remember those. Did the protesters think to run them over there? No, because all this is centered and rooted in race. And again, at that point, especially, we were having some good conversations when the pandemic first hit. There's also demographics of folks who you cannot tell them what to do, because they've never had to be in a position of being under somebody else's authority. White people in this country get to move in authoritative dispositions all the time. And so when something does happen, even whether it's public safety, public health, whatever, you're not gonna tell them what they can't do. Like, nope. It is what it is. All right. They definitely was showing up to state capitals with all kind of weapons. Pissed. They show up to school board meetings with weapons. Pissed. They go to Walmart for just going to Walmart to get a sack of potatoes. They got to bring the AK-47, the AR-15 in there just because the state allows them to. They're gonna do it for what? Nobody is gonna go in there and bother you in Walmart. All right. And then in the moments where there is some crazy gunman that shows up somewhere, then y'all don't even be heroes. People still get sprayed and massacred, and y'all didn't do nothing. All right. Those judges matter. I totally agree, Billy Flood. That's right now, judges are everything. What up, Ramaya A? Or Rama A, sorry. Oh, Chante Muhammad, I like that approach. Focus on local elections, what's actually happening in the community where you live. The president can't solve people's everyday problems. Um, I see that. Oh, B Power said, I feel you, Calvin. I agree that voting in local elections could be beneficial. I've just lost faith in most of the larger scale. Me too. Me too, to be honest. Like voting for the presidency. And even with that, as annoyed as I get, I still think it's even important to vote on the larger scales, especially in the space that we're going in now with all of the global nonsense. And I need America to chill with China. I need us to chill with all these other countries we trying to stir up stuff with. I don't have time. I understand the United States had an agreement they made with Taiwan back in 97 during the Clinton administration, but y'all better find some ways to use words, because I don't have time for us to jump into no nonsense with China. And understand that if the United States and China go to any kind of war, this is not going to be a war that's only fought on Chinese soil. China is going to be sending all kind of missiles to hit all of us, all right? Because they got the same technology we have. America, the United States has been lucky where most of the times when we jump into some kind of war, we always go to a country where they can't get over here. You know what I mean? We always go to a country where they don't have the kind of equipment to get the missiles or whatever going and start blowing up our stuff. But China has been ready for us. So that's not the smoke we want to jump into. So, in the same way that, there's all these countries that are just sitting on ready. I think in the future, with the people that are about to be in Congress or be in the White House, we need to make sure we got people in there that are level-headed, that are not warmongers. And sadly, we always end up electing them. Folks always want to go to war for some nonsense. Because again, American interests and our livelihood kind of almost depend on other countries not doing well. So we got to keep bombing and blowing up everybody to stay on the top, which is a stupid way of doing things. You could always just invest in the people. You could invest in education and infrastructure and the sciences and mathematics and healthcare and the things that make people want to build a better society. And before you know it, hey, the GDP starts to increase because we put all these different seeds and planted these different things for these citizens to flourish and to do well and to come into their own, where we don't just give all of our attention and our money and our politics and everything to just the, the super wealthy and the big banks, and then the people are collateral, and we keep stripping stuff to the point where people have an attitude with city legislatures voting for schools to have free lunch. Stupid. All right. Where are we at? Somebody said the local elections don't benefit us either. Local elections don't benefit us either. They want us to argue about CRT and it's not even being taught, argue about abortions and stay out of grown folks' business. But to that point, a lot of times if you're looking at the places where these CRT arguments are happening, they're happening in places where there's pretty much one core demographic that represents that entire district, right? And so they're speaking to their specific district and what they think those people technically want. And sadly, the minority groups that are in those districts, and when I say minority, I'm talking about just the smaller populations that have opposing views, there's not enough representation for them to fight and claw against what it is that they're, not supporting. But again, I think the locals still matter, because it goes back to that conversation I had about Prince Edward County, Virginia, when you had, it was time to desegregate the schools. And because they did not want to they did not want to have Black students in the Prince Edward County schools, the school board, which again would be a group that's elected, voted to close down the schools for a few years. So nobody went to school. And so, a lot of the white kids who had opportunities to go somewhere else were still able to get their education. A lot of the Black families in that area at the time had nowhere that they could go. So they had to create their own like homeschooling environments and everything like that, which was a great remedy. But understand that you can still be collateral to the decisions of people that, are in positions of power. So I still think even the local elections play a huge role. Even when you're talking about city budgets, how much money is going to the police versus how much is going to schools, how much is going to, like I'll say, like even for like a place like DC, when COVID first hit, and like just like DC and a lot of other places, they put like the rent moratoriums where, okay, we're not going to kick anybody out if they can't make their rent, and the city's going to try to do what they can do to try to help some of these landlords, stuff like that. You can only get to a space like that if you have the kind of right people in office, and that the budget has been created in a space where there's money for an emergency fund like that to ensure that you're not going to have half of your city out on the streets because they lost their jobs because the pandemic hit. Like, I think everything plays a role. Do I think vote? I think how we should look at it is voting is not the end all be all. Voting is step one to me. That's one piece of the puzzle, but there's a bunch of other things that should go into it. And I think maybe the challenge is people look at voting as that's supposed to fix everything and we're good from there. You vote and then you give your faith and your energy to whoever did it, and you go on and live your life and they'll take care of it. I think maybe that's the challenge. People have to understand that voting is just step one. Like, it's an ongoing process. You're gonna have to always be involved. Like I say, look at matriculating through this society in the same way that you would raise your children. You don't just give birth. And let's just say giving birth is the equivalent to voting. You just don't give birth and then the child, you just do, it is what it is, go for it. It's like, no, you give birth and now you're going to nurture, you're going to raise, you're going to teach, you're going to educate. When the child messes up, you're going to hold them accountable, and you're going to do course correction. You're going to do everything to the point where eventually that child is in a space where they're self-sufficient and they may not need you anymore for certain things. So now you don't have to fix their lunch anymore because they're old enough to do it. You may not have to pick their clothes out anymore because they're old enough to do it. As they get older, you don't even have to stay at home, and they can be at home by themselves because now they're teenagers. They know how to manage and so on and so forth. And before you know it, they're off to college or they're off to the workforce or to do whatever they wanted to do. And now they're going. And then the cycle continues and they start a family. That's how I kind of look at voting. Like, it can't just be you vote and then all is good and then you get pissed because nothing happened, or you just watched a whole bunch of foolishness take place, which is why I always say get involved at a local level. All right, I'm going to get off my soapbox because I still have so many topics to go through. Thank you, Billy Flood. Voting is the bare minimum. MTF gang, that's ideal for sure. Yes, very ideal. Sadly, it's not our reality. Nicole said you have treasonous black people that are in office. And that's because, again, that goes back to the conversation of symbolism. And it also goes back to the conversation of black faces in high spaces. And like I said on the last live, a lot of times when people finally make it to that main stage, as far as getting, to the big stage to a point where they may end up in office, a lot of times those are the bought out candidates. Those aren't the candidates that the people wanted. Like look at 2020. Biden was not, he was not anybody that people were excited about. But when it got down to the wire, you get the DNC who they're going to get behind, the RNC is going to get behind who they get behind, and the money starts talking. And before you know it, it's Biden or Trump, which one you want, And so I think, again, politics, and y'all can go back to my 2018 lives. I've been saying since at least 2018, there should have been some kind of movement to push out new faces, new energy, new candidates. You know what I mean? They play these games in our faces. I want to keep going because there's a few more bits I want to jump into. All right, let's talk about this sheriff out of Oklahoma. I'll be glad when we get to the happier stuff. I'm trying to get through these heavy subjects. All right. Where's that stupid sheriff, right? So this is the one with Kevin Clardy, who was caught on tape saying a bunch of crazy things, right? Let me just read some of the quotes that came. Now, mind you, this is the sheriff. Now, this is the person, he's supposed to be in charge of the force that's supposed to protect everybody. These are just some of the quotes. Now, this was with him and some other people that were in the office, right? I know where two big deep holes are. I know where two big deep holes are if you ever need them. Now that's in reference to the idea if you got to kill somebody and bury them, right? And then Clardy says, I have an excavator. Jennings says, well, these are already pre-dug, meaning, hey, they already got the spots ready. So in the event that somebody ever dies for some random reason or we need to hide the body, I got a place for you, right? Let's see. Let me keep going. I hope that thing is still working. All right, next portion. Jennings says, I've known 2 or 3 hitmen. They're very quiet guys. Manning, another person, says, yeah. Jennings says, and they would cut no effing mercy. Manning says, yeah. Jennings, in Louisiana, because this is all mafia around Louisiana. Jennings says, if it was back in the day, take a damn black guy and whoop their A and throw them in the cell. I'd run for effing sheriff. The sheriff says, yeah, well, it's not like that anymore. Jennings, I know. Take them down to Mud Creek and hang them up with a damn rope. But you can't do that anymore. They've got more rights than we got. I'm going to stop there for the sake of my peace of mind. These are the people in charge. So again, when we talk about elections, I don't know if the sheriff in that specific area gets elected or if that's appointed. But again, there's a lot of places where the county sheriff is elected. This is, again, right here at a local level where those elections do play a role. But again, on a different note, when people ask, why don't black folks trust the police? Why don't black folks really like to even utilize the police in situations? This is what we're talking about. Because again, there's no regard for black life. We're seen as beings that are disposable, and we're seen as people that you can do anything to and nothing happens, and it's all okay because it's all in the name of the status quo. So yeah, we got holes buried ready, right? And I just read like a fraction of what was there. And then what makes it even easier or more entertaining, rather than addressing what was said, he gets pissed because he's like, the people that recorded me were illegal. So now, it says, let me see. Sheriff Kevin Clardy didn't address the comments about killing journalists and hanging black people, but calls the situation complex. A southeastern Oklahoma sheriff's office says the recording in which the sheriff and others are reportedly heard discussing killing 2 journalists was illegal and predicted felony charges will be filed. So rather than addressing what has been exposed, you're going to be mad that you got exposed. Right? And to be fair, not even to be fair, to be honest and look at things from a reality, he may actually have a case because, again, when we talk about the way that people can get off on a lot of technicalities, whatever the rules and the laws are in regards to recording people, he may just actually be able to get off scot-free and then still charge the people who caught that information. And so rather than the sheriff and everybody in that room being held accountable, or there being an audit of the people who are in these spaces that have these badges and have permission to go and kill people, all in the name of the law and the local government, the energy is going to be put on some random person that happened to expose these folks for who they really were. And they'll catch the smoke. They'll catch all the flames. They'll catch all the fire. And the sheriff most likely will stay in power. You know what I mean? And continue to do what they do. And if anything, that's almost a smoke signal that inspires more people who feel that way to join that police department. You know, um, there's a certain agency I was reading about, which was very interesting because they had their own police force. And going back to January 6th, they had to get rid of a lot of the people on their police force because their specific force was at the Capitol that day. Folks had called out people thinking they're sick. They at the Capitol over here storming and killing the other police, right? So it's interesting to see like these movements get stirred up when people hear certain phrases and certain words and certain terms and certain viewpoints that they align with. And so recognize that that whole department is a good old boys club. And the fact that they're comfortable with, that kind of conversation just in any random space, it just goes to show that, okay, yeah, this is pretty much how they move, how they operate, and they're comfortable doing it because they're never challenged, they're never held accountable. Anything goes. I just want to make sure there's not anything else that I wanted to cover before I go to the next bit. Is there anything else in here? The statement calls the past 72 hours amongst the most difficult and disruptive in recent memory and says the recording was altered and involves many victims, whatever. This is an ongoing investigation. They got a whole investigation into the recording, but not what's being said. That's the part that gets me. Anything else worth mentioning here? Now there have been calls for them to resign and step down. We'll see how that goes. But the way that things move around these parts, who knows? All right. Also, speaking of police, the judge has ruled that Derrick Chauvin's conviction will be upheld, and so no, he's not getting a retrial for killing George Floyd, and so no, you're going to stay in there. And it was also revealed that even before the George Floyd, situation, that the city had to pay $8.7 million for all kind of different just offenses that they've done as far as Minneapolis to different residents in the area. Now that was before George Floyd. So again, when we talk about these police departments and these big settlements, I think if you saw my video, what was that video called? I just want to make sure I have the right title. It's the video I did on, we've done so many, I start to lose track of what these things were called. The video on Tyree Nichols. In that video, I go into detail about just how all of these different police departments have these massive budgets for settlements. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of police departments continue to do whatever they do, because they can just write a check and pay people off and keep it moving. But just recognize that as you see some of these police officers finally be held accountable for what they do, notice that there's still no element of any form of really being apologetic. So you see Derrick Chauvin, who even after all that, it's like, I still was right. I didn't do nothing wrong. I want a new trial. Or Amber Geiger, who, that's the one who killed Botham Jean, and she was only sentenced to 10 years. She got away with a whole lot anyway. And even after Botham's family wanted to give her a hug and the judge gave her a Bible and the bailiff was fixing her hair and everything, she still was like, I still don't think I should deserve to be in here. And, she wanted a new trial. So it's interesting to see how these things move, right? Bunch of nonsense. All right, I have one more heavy story, and then we can finally get to the lighter topics. Let me read some comments first, though. Not Tim Fischel says, if voting really didn't matter, they wouldn't be hiding all the drop boxes for ballots. It's definitely a point. They know what they're doing, but yeah, our vote is still valuable, even if they don't do us right. I'll say that. Because the thing you just don't want to get to a point where things are so cemented that even at that point voting can't change it. And that's kind of the wave and the direction that a lot of folks are moving in, where there's certain positions that were once electable that are now more so appointed because things have changed in policy. So that's when you get into a dangerous slope, because at that point, how do you change a system when at that point it's all locked in and cemented? You know what I mean? All right. Where are we going with this? Kayla said, going back to reparations, if they ever happen to approve it, I'm sorry, reparations, if they ever happen, who approves the amount and the benefits? Well, the question becomes, it depends on who's in office. You don't want to have a whole lot of folks who don't even think slavery was that bad of a thing to be the ones making that kind of decision, because they'll say, actually, I think we should gut this because I think it's racist to give Black people something and not give something to anybody else. So again, everything comes back full circle. All right. Somebody said if they ban TikTok, the Dems will take the biggest L possible. I feel like both right now. It's interesting to see who's pushing that because I feel like both parties. For me, it seems like Republicans are the ones really pushing for it because I see that it got banned in Montana. I just think there are bigger fish to fry right now. You got people getting shot up in movie theaters and schools and churches every other day. And y'all worried about TikTok. Um, TikTok can be another conversation. I just think there's more important things right now. Excuse me, sorry, I get over here burping. Um, anyway. Somebody said I sound like Wakanda forever. Okay, I don't know where that goes, but all right. Anyway. Um, Andre said these decisions are still going to be made for us if we participate or not. Abstaining doesn't help, especially with how hard they try to keep us out. That's my thing. We're going to always be collateral to the nonsense. And which is why I didn't get a chance to read all the comments on my Justin Jones and Justin Pearson video, but there were a lot of people in the comments who were like, the conversation around gun violence ain't got nothing to do with us. So why are we worried about it? And I don't like when we have that approach because it's kind of like, well, that ain't got nothing to do with us. That's them. But recognize a lot of times we still end up as collateral in the end result. Even like, look at even the Alabama shooting with the Sweet 16 party and all those kids that just got shot up, right? Gun violence is a conversation for everybody, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. Now, I think there's different layers of that conversation and different people have different meanings in regard to what that is. But recognize that once things hit white America in a negative way, it eventually gets to us. Remember when COVID first started? I mean, like, well, not first started. Well, yeah, when I think it might have been in the first live I did in regards to COVID when it first hit. And at the time, remember that first week or two where only white people had it? And there was a kind of rumor like, oh, black folks can't get it. And folks were joking like, oh, you just got to drink ginger ale and everything. And I specifically said, oh, don't worry, it's going to get to us soon. The country's just still very segregated in the way that it's mapped out and where people live. Because when you look at where the first few cases were, they were in areas where there weren't a whole lot of black folks. And so folks were like, yeah, that ain't got nothing to do with us. We fast forward, it goes and it spreads everywhere. Just, that's the point that I'm getting at. Like, there are some things that I don't think really have to do with us. But again, even if you talk about the school shooting in Nashville, who was one of the main people that died out of those three, the black person that worked at the school. So those conversations are a conversation that still affect black people. Is that, and I think we have to look at it as a way where, again, we can address multiple things at once. I think we're getting into a space where folks want to only address one thing or two things, and then everything else is what it is. I think that's a slippery slope to move in because you end up being blinded because you're just focused on whatever it is that's right here. All these other things are happening around you, but you're not paying attention to it. And then fast forward when it's too little, too late, and now you're collateral, and now you're mad at the system. So I think there's multiple things that we can pay attention to and give focus with. That's how I see it. Anyway. Stacey Lloyd, hey Calvin, have you talked about the student substitute? Oh, I didn't add that. Love your content as always. That's the clip with the girl fighting the teacher. What do I think about that? One, I think kids are too comfortable walking up on adults. Understand, like some people, even though people may be in their professional space or whatever, you just can't keep walking up on people. But I also don't like the idea of teachers always confiscating things because I think it stirs up sometimes bigger problems than what are already there. I don't know on that one. My opinion hasn't been really locked in yet. But I feel that, well, one, that substitute, she ain't working there no more. I'm just gonna put myself in the shoes. If I were the substitute, for me, I don't think that student would have been able to get under my skin in the way that it did with that substitute. But again, these kids walk up on these teachers and be thinking these teachers are punks, and they're not. And in the same way, a lot of these folks, sometimes from the same neighborhood, I don't know. It's just, yeah. But I also kind of look at the parent as well. Like, my parents would kick my behind if they ever found out I walked up on, like, raised up on a teacher and, over something like a cell phone. Because the thing is, when a teacher confiscates your cell phone, you're getting it back anyway. And the way that most of these schools work, most teachers can't confiscate anyway. They have to give it back or they have to hold it somewhere, blah, 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 blah. But I also see the girl's response as I think she has some other things going on as well. Like for her to get to that level over the phone, I was like, all right. I wonder what like life at home is like. And I'm not a doctor, I ain't a psychologist. I'm just going by what I saw from the clip. I didn't read the full story. I don't have the context of everything. I could be wrong, but I think there's fault on both ends, definitely. I just no kid is taking me there. Like, and I worked with kids for 11 years. I didn't had a few that got real comfortable, and I had to remind them like, listen, understand that anything that I'm doing is not because I'm trying to make your life difficult. It's because I'm just trying to give you the best opportunity you have. And I think the challenge for that substitute is that substitute doesn't have the relationship with that student that I don't even know if the teacher would have that relationship, to be honest, because a lot of students and teachers don't have those kind of relationships. With me and my kids, I had it because I was with the same cohort for 11 years. So over time, that was never a worry of mine. There was never going to be a kid that tried to raise up on me or try to pull up. Now, there might have been a parent or two that wanted to square off, what's good, what time you get off. But none of the kids were ever going to do that. But I think each case is its own unique situation. Because I've seen other ones where I was 100% on the teacher's side, and I'm like, go ahead and lay them out. Go ahead. Now the sub, ma'am, I'm gonna need you to have a different choice of clothing to wear because if you already gonna be throwing hands, we can't be seeing all of you exposed. You know what I mean? But that was disturbing and uncomfortable to watch. I'll say that. But we'll see how that unfolds. I don't really have a full opinion on it yet. I need to go back and look at everything before I really just say how I really feel on that. But I didn't like watching that. I'll say that. Anyway, but yeah, a lot of these kids are too comfortable raising up and walking up on these teachers, which is why this is why so many of them are quitting. Um, Man. Anyway. Um, they were saying that because they hadn't adjourned the meeting that the recording might be legal. Okay, Serenity Joy, that's in regards to the Oklahoma sheriff. Um, um, where we at? Where we at? Miss Davis said, and they're still lynching. They certainly still are. That's a good question, Charlene. I don't know if Derrick Chauvin is in general population. He should be though. Put him right in there with everybody else. You want to sit on somebody's neck? All right, well, we're gonna put you in here with some other folks who stabbed and shot 50 people. All y'all can hang out together and have lunch together. Go see what's for lunch. All right. Janine Grant said, all she did was kill a black guy. Like, what's the big deal? That's how they think. And that's exactly how a lot of folks move. They don't see us as actual beings that have families and have dreams and lives and have a story. We're just disposable for so many folks, which is why it's so hard for people to have any kind of empathy for any kind of black struggle, which is why even when you bring up the plight of black Americans, it's met with so much resistance. It's met with so much kickback. It's met with so much, why did you have to bring that up? This is divisive. We're not supposed to be heard. We're supposed to just be grateful we're here. That's the way people want to move, right? All right. Also, you seem to be quite joyful. How do you maintain your sanity when all this is going on? And many, not all in our communities, appear to be politically immature. Probably because I've just been doing this for like a decade. Like YouTube is, I've pretty much for my entire adulthood, I've had a YouTube channel. So I don't want to say I'm not desensitized. I just feel like there's work to do. So, when you're passionate about something or you're working towards something, as draining as it can be, you recognize that it's for a bigger picture and it's not about just me. But I do definitely take a lot of breaks, which is why sometimes y'all get mad because sometimes I'll go 2 weeks without uploading anything. But I also do balance that out with other things. Like when we finish this live, my life goes back to a life outside of everything that's crazy happening in the world. So maybe I'm making music, or maybe this is a sunroom in here, or I'll sit in my sunroom with my vinyls and my tea and kick on my recliner or I'll spend time with friends or family, or like I said, I go to a lot of concerts. So I find other things that kind of balance out. I don't just sit, eat, and breathe and live and drink trauma and violence and chaos in American politics because I'm not trying to die at 59 of cardiac arrest. So You have to find a balance, but it is tough, and that's why I fully understand what people need to check out. There's a lot of people who sometimes say, "Calvin, I love your content, but I have to unsubscribe because it's just hard to that every time I see your face, it's something I know something crazy's happened," which I fully understand, you know. So it comes with the territory. The real Aries kid said, vice versa. Teachers are also thinking kids are punks too. Yeah, you got some horrible folks that don't need to be in the classroom as well. Um, I think the healthiest thing to do when, especially with teenagers, right? My goal is always, well, let's figure out how to de-escalate the situation. We can still deal with it. And there's many ways to deal with a bunch of things, but like I'm all about how do we de-escalate. If oh god, I need to upload that podcast episode. I even talk about that. If you listen to the podcast episode where I talk about the center and I tell a story about how there's a situation where one of my teenagers, really great kid, he just thought somebody stole his iPod, and this how long ago it was. People were still using iPods, right? He thought somebody stole his iPod, so he was pissed off, and he randomly there was a pool table with a bunch of coats and stuff on it, right? Because the kids used to put all their coats and stuff on the pool table, so he's going through the pool table, throwing all the coats back and everything. One of the coats lands on one of these kids, right? Um, the kid didn't tell me or tell staff, and the kid just went straight home and told his parents. And what the parents and the brother thought they heard was that this 16-year-old teenager beat up a 9-year-old. And so I'm sitting here doing my little snacks with the kids, doing my announcements. Everybody's sitting in the room, and they're like, "Mr. Michael, look." I'm like, "What?" And I look to the left because it's like a glass door. You can see through everything. And then there's also a window. I see like 5 adults coming, and these people were not coming to talk. They were coming to throw down. And so you'd have to listen to the podcast to get the whole story. But long story short, I was good with my words. And I was able to de-escalate what could have been, because it was to the point where like I went outside to try to converse, because I had my coworkers in the team. I was like, y'all lock the doors and let these people in here, because if they come in here, I know who they're coming. Well, actually, I didn't know the story yet. I just knew something was happening. But I knew something was up because the way that they're coming in, I'm like, no, they're coming to fight for whatever happens. So y'all lock the doors. I'm gonna go outside and talk. So now I'm locked outside with this family of like 5 or 6 people that are ready. And so it was like, you better find a way with words, or your face gonna be up against the pavement. So I'm all about the idea of de-escalating situations. And I think sometimes with adults, sadly, sometimes our egos get in the way too. Because the thing about like being a teacher or being somebody in a position of power, sometimes it's easy to light up some kids and fry them up sometimes when you want to make an example out of one. And so you have to sometimes be careful in that space as well too, because you also need to recognize the headspace of who it is that that youth is. And I think that's where it goes back to the conversation of relationships. For me, again, because I had the same cohort of kids since 2011 that grew up with me, the families understood everything I'm going to do is all for the good of the child. I'm never going to go out of my way to purposely make a child feel less than, or I'm never going to go out of my way to purposely tear down a child or ridicule or embarrass or humiliate. And so, once that's established and there's a trust that's there and there's an understanding, that's when you get that collective buy-in where the kids trust you. Every day is not a good day, but they recognize on those bad days, they know you still love them, right? The parents trust you or whatever. And if you and the parents butt heads on something, you guys can come to a common ground or a common medium. And then it's to the point where even when you go to the schools know who you are. And they know that, okay, if you showed up at the school this day because they've been showing out in class all week, okay, let's have a sit down with me, you, the parent, in the school. Like, it's relationships. I don't think teachers and like substitutes can really get that, because teachers don't get the same cohort of kids for 11 years. They get a new kid every quarter or semester. So it's just a different conversation. So everything is different. And I think in this modern space we're in, where the world has been chaotic, a lot of kids have dealt with some serious trauma, right? And so, I just think we're in a space where you really have to almost read. You almost just have to read into where everybody's headspace is. But there's so many layers. So many layers. All right. Anyway. D Power said sometimes violence is necessary. Oh, I agree. Maybe not in this conversation with that kid, but in a lot of other things, sometimes I question why I haven't seen enough hands being thrown in some situations. I'm like, we let so much slide, especially some of the things that people continue to do. I'm like, ooh, too much talking, not enough throwing of the hands. That's me. All right. Serene Joy said, not to be funny, but we're assuming that the substitute teacher had classroom management. Who knows what the requirements have been reduced to? And that's a great point, because again, especially as we started having the teacher shortages in like 2021. You saw like districts were kind of shifting how they could get in substitute teachers and stuff. So who knows what the rules were or what the stipulations were for who's in the classroom. It's just different. We'll see how everything goes. Anyway, what up, Chris V? Look, Chris V, you've been doing it, bro. Chris been doing commercials and acting and music. Chris V's a longtime subscriber. Check him out. Follow him on, I think, Instagram, YouTube. He does music. He has a few commercials. I think he was in. I think it was a Sprite commercial. He's been getting it in. Definitely support him. I like to see people get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. He's been putting in work, so really dope. Shout out to Chris V. His music's really good, by the way, as well. He's an R&B singer. Thank you, Portia Miranda. They said, we support you on anything? I don't have anything really going on right now. However, in my description, there are some businesses and charities and groups that I really like to get behind, so you can support them. The way y'all can support me is just keep watching my stuff. You know what I mean? And when the time comes when I do drop certain releases, get behind those things as well. That would be wonderful. You know? Yeah. Thank you, V Power. So you are very balanced. I wish more Black men had your mentality. I think a lot of us do. I just think the problem is the ones that we see always in the forefront tend to be the ones that are the loudest and the wrongest, right? Because controversy and chaos brings about an audience, also brings about revenue, which is why you see a lot of folks with large platforms that really shouldn't have them. So I think sometimes Black men, we sometimes do get a really bad rep, but I think there's a lot of us that are really great folks. And you don't hear from us because we're at home taking care of business, or we're doing what we need to do and we don't have to be on platforms. And so you tend to just see the ones that don't make us look good. I'd be like, dang, y'all. Sometimes the stuff that I see, I'm like, why, you know? But thank you for that. All right. Somebody said Christ turned over the table. Yeah, look, Jesus went to the temple when they was gambling, kicked them tables over. Y'all gambling in my daddy house. All right. Oh, Stacy Lloyd, we're here. I was going to talk about this, and I forgot. Did you see? And there's two videos. Did you see the video of the white lady spitting on the black lady and it didn't turn out well? I did see that. Y'all gonna be mad at me? I don't think she did enough because I was still enraged when it was over with. I'm like, I think there should have been more done between that and the clip of the lady calling that black lady the N-word, and then she started crying when the lady caught up with her after when they got outside. Like, stop bothering people. That's my thing. Leave people alone. Folks love to push their weight or push their privilege or push their authoritative dispositions with folks. And then when folks clap back and snap, then they want to cry and be victim. Like, leave people alone. I'm telling you. Calvin, are we getting a third album? I don't want to say too much, but 2023 is going to be a really great year for a lot of things. I'm very, very excited. I've already done the groundwork for a lot of stuff, so it'll be really, really cool. We'll get to it. So I am excited, which is why I've been working on a lot of things for the last 2 or 3 years, which is why I haven't been as active as I would like to be. Even right now, I think I said some lives ago that I had been working on a musical with a different group, and so Showtime is on the 28th for that. So I will be so glad when rehearsals are done because we rehearse every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'm tired, and I'm not in it. I'm just helping as far as the musicality part, but I want to keep going because there's a few other things. All right, I got one more semi-heavy story here. And it's so interesting because we've talked about this so much, but to see it in real time, I'm like, perfect. This is the story I want. So again, let's jump into a conversation about Black farmers, all right? Black farmers say Tennessee is trying to hustle them off their land. As the state of Tennessee uses eminent domain, a conversation we've had many, many times before on this channel, to take over land to connect a new multi-billion-dollar Ford plant to the interstate. See how these things just connect? We've talked about the interstate and how neighborhoods have been bulldozed to create all those different things. I almost want to do a video series where I just go city by city and talk about what was destroyed in order to build the freeway, but my plate's already full. So hopefully there will be another content creator that heard that idea and steals it from me if I don't do it first. All right. Black farmers say the government is offering them a fraction of what their land is worth. A year ago, Ford Motor Company broke ground on a $5.6 billion electric truck plant in a rural region of Tennessee full of African-American farmers, according to Tennessee Lookout. While the investment has brought economic prosperity to the area, Tennessee government officials have moved to threaten black towns and financially bulldoze over land that has been in black families for generations. Now, the Tennessee Department of Transportation is attempting to use eminent domain to take over a black farmer's land while offering them a fraction of what their land is worth. It's not the first time we've had to fight. Marvin Sanderlin, a longtime farmer in Haywood County with 400 acres of land, told Tennessee Lookout. The recent developments come a year after a Tennessee comptroller told black residents of Mason to remove their elected black officials from office. It also comes during fallout over Tennessee House Republicans expelling 2 members of the Tennessee Three after lawmakers protested for our gun safety legislation on the House floor. Marvin Sanderlin is no stranger to fighting against the state to maintain ownership of his land. Local accounts highlight how his great-grandmother, an enslaved woman, successfully sued to ensure her children inherited a portion of land from their slave-owning father. The state has taken Sanderlin to court for 10 acres of his property as it lies in the path of the planned roadway that would connect the Ford plant to the interstate. Sanderlin says the state is offering to pay him only $3,750 per acre. That's unheard of, Sanderlin said. You can't buy no land here for $3,500 an acre. You can't buy a swamp here for $3,500, Sanderlin said. I told them this is the biggest ripoff there is. They want your land, but they don't want you to participate in the wealth. He proposed construction would run through black-owned land in Tipton, Haywood, and Fayette counties. Some black farmers landowners have joined together along with NAACP to fight back. The fight comes as black farmers around the nation continue to criticize the Biden administration for its failure to secure targeted investment for them in the federal farm bill, despite black farmers suffering long-time discrimination in federal funding. We've talked about that a few times as well. Go back and look at how black farmers were left out of the USDA program and also the conversations of heirs land. Investments on the backs of black farmers. The Ford plant is expected to add 6,000 direct jobs and nearly 25,000 indirect jobs to the region. With the single largest investment in state history, this project brings thousands of jobs and new opportunities for Tennessee families to thrive, Governor Bill Lee said last month. Yet, black farmers who own land along the proposed roadway's path say the economic prosperity arriving in the region shouldn't come at the cost of their land. Roy Jones is a retired school teacher who runs the Boys and Girls Club of Brownsville. The state is offering him just over $8,000 for an acre of his land. It has been our heritage, Jones said. The land's deed notes the land cannot be sold, he said. It has been passed down for 100 years, and now they want to run right through it, Jones said. Outside the building containing the Jones family mineral springs in 1930. Oh, this is a picture. I'm gonna bypass that. It's just a picture of the land from years ago. All right. Jones said he supports the Ford investment, but he blames TDOT, that's the Tennessee Department of Transportation, for their attempt to hustle him off his land. All the people are benefiting from Blue Oval, and that's good. We are 100% in support of Blue Oval. Make sure you quote me on that. But then you want to take my spring and give me pennies on it. It's an unreasonable situation, Jones said. Rosa Whitmore, 82, owns a home that was built on the land where her grandparents picked cotton. She says the state didn't inform her of their interest in the land until late last month. They're also offering her just $8,000 per acre. I worked with my own 2 hands up at 6 a.m. going to work the field under the hot sun. That's what we had to do to own this land, Whitmore said. I'm going to stop there. You see how everything connects full circle? Now, we've done at least a dozen videos having a conversation of how black farmers have lost their land through the U.S. and state governments, a lot of times using eminent domain, and a lot of times that also tied to the conversation of heirs land. And what makes this even more interesting is even the fact that they want to take some of the land to build the roads that would connect to this plant, which kind of correlates with the conversations we have about how the entire interstate freeway system bulldozed over dozens of neighborhoods, not even dozens, pretty much hundreds of black neighborhoods in order to create, the freeway system we have. So pretty much no matter what city you go to, if you go to DC, if you go to Minneapolis, if you go to Miami, if you go to Liberty City, you go to Atlanta, you go to Detroit, you go to all these different places, there are segments, even in New York, there are segments, and Philadelphia as well, there are segments where, you have overpasses, you have freeway systems that once, were neighborhoods that are now no longer there, where they, built and destroyed to create this, interstate system. And so to see it all kind of play in real time, this is what we've been talking about in regard to just how black people are always collateral to a lot of nonsense, right? And so you have these black farmers who have had this land for years and years and years that are minding their business, Ford decides they want to build some giant plant. And so of all the spaces they could go to, they go to the area where the black folks are. Well, let's build over here and tear down their stuff. And it's interesting that it's Ford that we talk about because, again, I wonder if I can find it real quick. Let me grab one book. Give me one sec. Let's see. I don't know if I have it in here. We talked about the color of law before. There's a segment in a chapter that talks about what the Ford plant had done in Richmond, California when they first were going into operation here. Let me see if I wrote my notes down on my phone already. Ford plant. Boom. Look at me already having it. See, this is what happens when you write your notes and everything. So back in the day, can this tell me what chapter this was? Oh, well, okay. Well, the note that I wrote, Ford plant was moving from Richmond and was preventing the Richmond employees from transferring. And that was mainly because at that point, a lot of the employees were black. The new location city prevented construction of new housing except single family homes. Frank Stevenson. Okay, I remember this story now. There's a man named Frank Stevenson. All right, this was a black man who worked at the Ford plant, right? And he was one of only 8 black people who were able to successfully move to the new Ford plant because Ford had built a plant in Richmond, California, way back in the day. And so they decided they were going to move to, God, what it starts with an S. What is the name of that city? Dang, man. Oh, no, it wasn't an S. It was Palo Alto. So they were going to move the plant to Palo Alto, right? And so understand it at that point in time, and this is all coming out of the book, The Color of Law, right? So there's a portion where when this plant was first in Richmond, right, it was already jumping over 1 million hurdles just for black people to even find, jobs within this plant because they weren't allowed to be in management positions. There were all these stipulations on what they were allowed to do, even when it came to where they could live, because this was all about redlining. There were certain segments of town that they were only allowed to live in. Then they decided they wanted to move the plant to Palo Alto, right? And then they created a stipulation where people from Richmond couldn't just move to Palo Alto. You had to earn these new positions that you were going to get. So pretty much all these new establishments are created in Palo Alto specifically just for this Ford plant. And pretty much all of the black employees that were at the Richmond location could not transfer into the Palo Alto region, in addition to the fact that there were all these new covenants and laws that prevented black folks from even living in the area because, there weren't, with the redlining, they just weren't allowed to live in the area. So they would have had to live too far. Alto from Richmond. I just want to see the difference of how far these places are in regards to driving, just to make sure my argument is not going in vain here. And so if you're talking about the distance, that's a 2-hour and 30-minute drive from, oh, wait, no. Sorry. That's we're talking about Virginia. No, I want California. Y'all tripping. That's too, that makes more sense. Okay, so it's about a 1-hour drive, right? And so what would have had to happen is those black employees those 8 that were able to get to the Richmond plant would have had to just drive the 1 hour to get to work every day. And everybody else, unfortunately lost their jobs. That was a conversation of just what happened with the unions. I don't remember what chapter that was in this book. I want to say, God, what chapter was this? I cannot remember to save my life. But definitely check out this book, The Color of Law. It goes into a whole bunch of different experiences. And then they also talk about blockbusting. Blockbusting was, let me see, it says blockbusting whites fled at a discount after one black family moved in. This created white flight, and then the agents hiked up the prices, purposely sold it to blacks. Palo Alto became 82% black after the white folks. Damn, they stay doing some white flight. I'll come back to it in a different day. I want to make sure my argument is actually centered and organized before I try to make it. But again, it's interesting that it's Ford. I'm like, Ford, y'all stay having a history with us. That's all I'll say. But again, with these farmers, you have these farmers who have this land, they have what they have. And then again, we talk eminent domain where the state and the local governments or the federal government comes in and says, well, we're going to take this land because it's for the good of the common good of the people, right? And then we're going to lowball you. We're not going to give you what your land is worth. So you will never be made whole. And what ends up happening in these situations is a lot of times, if they don't take the settlement or they don't take the offer, a lot of times they'll go to court. The state or whatever place has, this top tier lawyers that have these big budgets and everything. And a lot of times the plaintiffs or the defendants don't have the kind of budgets to get the representation that they deserve. And they end up losing in court. And sometimes they leave with nothing. Right. And so that happens. Or people settle because they finally say, okay, we'll take what we can get. But sometimes when they settle, they actually settle for less than what was initially offered. And so pay attention to what's happening, because it's not just Tennessee. You're seeing this all over. Like when you look at, especially a lot of those really big giant mall plazas that were built in the 70s and 80s, those big giant malls that all across the country, go back and look at the history of the conversation of eminent domain and who sold what, who got rid of what in order for that to be a thing. Like we are always collateral to some nonsense. It is like, give me the strength. So we'll see what happens with that. And it even goes back to, again, even the lawsuit we talked about, where the Biden administration did say, okay, well, we're going to put about $5 billion towards disenfranchised farmers. But the language in the bill does not really specifically say black farmers. It just says like disenfranchised, disadvantaged farmers that were left out of programs. So that also includes other farmers who lost out. And then even before those settlements could be paid out, white farmers got mad and said, oh, no, y'all can't do that. That's reverse discrimination. You guys are leaving us out. And so they've sued, and there's pretty much been a stay on that order. And so now, like, nothing is happening. It's just all sitting there. And now black farmers are like, y'all were supposed to give us our money years ago. We still haven't gotten it. And it just goes back, because even what's crazy is the white farmers that sued, all those white farmers already got bailouts from the Trump administration, right? You know, Trump decided he wanted to smoke with China. He does the whole Trump nonsense, and we got the tariffs and the wars, and it's kicking our farmers behind, right? So American farmers have to get bailed out. However, a lot of black farmers were left out of that because they didn't qualify to be USDA farms. A lot of them did not qualify to be USDA farms because they was farmland that was on what you called heirs land. And because a lot of heirs land was not recognized by state and local governments as being actual deeds, then they did not qualify to be a part of the USDA program. To be a part of the USDA program, you needed to qualify. What benefits do you get from being a part of the USDA programs? You get lots of subsidies, you get discounts, you get all kind of different things like equipment to plow the land. You got tons and tons of acres of land. You can't do it all by yourself. And so, you know, they missed out on the loans that were available. They missed out on the access to additional equipment, the access to resources, seeds, things in regards to irrigation, things in regards to anything that can help you have a successful harvesting season. And then in addition to that, there are tons of businesses that do not do business or will not even have a conversation about commerce with farms that are not USDA approved. And so it's just crazy how all of this ties together. So understand everything is connected, right? And again, race plays a role in everything. That's why when people get mad at me for always bringing up race, I'm always just like, you can get as mad as you want, but I can always find some policy that's going to back everything that I'm saying. I can always find some policy that highlights how black people have always been left out of something. I'm still stuck on this book, and I want to find this dang chapter so I can at least reference and tell you which part of the book to go to in regards to that. But it's just, man, is it this part? I swear, they just... I'm going to leave it alone because I will sit here and look at this up all day. So I'm going to let it pass for now. But yeah, they be playing in our faces. Okay, let's read some comments, and then finally we can get to some of these entertainment related stories. All right. What said they need to reset the education system? I 100% agree. 100% agree. I've already said our curriculums are dated, and the way that we approach school is not, it just doesn't fit for 2023 at all. At all. Ms. Lee 333 said, yes, loud and wrong. I'm happy that you gave honor to that reality, Calvin. There's lots of amazing, brilliant brothers out there like you. Thank you. Yes, there are. Thank you for acknowledging them. Yeah, I just don't want us to get into a space where, because there are a lot of fools, I'll say fools, a lot of fools in our community that do a lot of stupid things, they don't represent the entire collective. And I think we have to be careful with giving them so much power, which is why there's a lot of names on here I just don't even say out loud because I don't want to give them exposure. But there's a lot of folks who don't need microphones. Start putting away the podcast equipment, okay? All right. Let's see. Poison Ivy said, I remember my senior year of college. My best friend's mother walked out of the classroom and quit after 25 years of teaching because she felt like she was going to hit a student. It's rough. It is very rough. And again, going back to the fact that I think the approach is so dated, this is a generation of kids that have grown up in social media and have grown up in nothing but chaos. They've grown up through mass shootings and pandemics and white nationalism and all these different things, in addition to crazy advances and advancements within technology. But the way that a lot of these school curriculums are still set up, they're still set up like it's 2001. They're still set up like it's 1996. right? And so you can't expect kids to be excited to learn, especially in a society where, for me, I feel like for kids, there is nothing to look forward to in the future. You have the issues with climate change, and our world is going to definitely, our experience is going to definitely start to adapt in the next few decades in regards to what's been happening with climate change. Again, you see the political unrest, you see the gun violence, you see all these different things taking place. You see, like, the cost of living is so high. The cost of even education, as far as college, is ridiculously high. Like, they have nothing to look forward to. So there's just a place in my heart for kids right now. I just understand. I don't think they're 100%, at fault for responding the way that they respond to a lot of things that happen. You know what I mean? All right. Queen said, when will the reparative justice be given to Black American farmers like they've been fighting for this for decades upon decades? And I think with that, I think at a local level, it's going to have to pretty much be initiatives that get passed through. I feel like that's the fastest way. Getting some kind of initiative passed at a local level, but you really need this from a federal standpoint, to be honest. Like, this needs to be a federal thing, because the challenge with anything at a local level is it's not going to be the same across the board. So maybe let's just say local jurisdictions come out with some kind of initiative. It gets the voters do whatever it passes or whatever happens. Actually, maybe I'm a backtrack. I don't even know if I like the idea of initiatives, because depending on the demographics of the people in that area, they may vote against it. So I changed my mind. Um, but but to say something passes at a local level, um, who's to say that one group on one portion of Tennessee gets a whole lot, but then a group in another area that has the same issue only gets a fraction of a settlement because that local jurisdiction voted for something different. I just think something needs to get done. I'll say that. Janine Grant said, Tim Scott said America's not a racist country. Well, he's learning it the hard way, because I see that his campaign is not doing very well. And no matter how much of a white piece or a mouthpiece you want to be for white supremacy, at the end of the day, they're going to choose their own when they can at your expense. So even though he thinks he has favor with white America, you won't be getting too far in the election, Tim Scott. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But you keep tap dancing anyway. Oh, Billy Flood, we talked about this. Yes, you realize that the state of Tennessee owes HBCU, TSU $500 million in back funding. We are a land grant university, and the government keeps stalling. I don't remember what live we talked about this on, but yes, we definitely talked about TSU. There's a lot of money owed everywhere, man. Folks be playing these games around here. That's all I'll say. Akira 34. I'm not even gonna read that comment, but you got jokes. Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. That's a clever name. Folk this. Say it fast enough and you'll realize what they're trying to say. A plant. That corner of Tennessee has plenty of areas to build. They're just being a-holes, and they know how to be. Like, pretty much, again, we're always gonna be the first choice to go and screw over when they want to get rid of some stuff all the time, right? It's even like when they go and gentrify different cities. There's all kind of places where folks can live, but you always go and find the blackest sides of town and want to go and take over. That's why, and I'm not going to readdress it because we've said it a million times. You can go to my Lil Wayne video in regards to the whole, what's that stupid program called? What was the thing Trump put out there that was supposed to be for the neighborhood improvement things for black neighborhoods? God, what is the thing called? It's something y'all know. Let me go to the bottom of the chat. I know y'all know what it is. It's it's not improvement, opportunity zone. Thank you, hey baby. Yeah, it goes back to the opportunity zone and how pretty much that was a way to pretty much accelerate gentrification in a lot of black neighborhoods. And so something that was pushed and presented as, oh, this is going to create opportunity for black businesses, really it just gave a leg up for the hospitality business. And a lot of people who were already super wealthy just were able to come into spaces and take over things. And with that policy, there was no line items that said specifically whatever you create has to benefit the residents of this area in this neighborhood. So new businesses came into town, and those new businesses brought the employees that came from other regions, and it did not benefit most of these areas. In addition to the fact that in order to qualify for the tax credits and everything else, you already had to be an established business, and so automatically that puts out folks who would have been the mom and pop businesses, or who would have wanted to do the mom and pop businesses or get an opportunity for certain things. They just didn't qualify. Check out that Lil Wayne video. It's from a few years back. It goes into full detail with all the liner notes and all the graphics. This is kind of why I do like doing pre-made content, even though it takes more time, because then I can have my supporting visuals to back, and it's just not me just talking and y'all don't think I'm just up here making up stuff. But man, Let's see. When you're talking about the kids that got shot, some of your facts were wrong. Just let you know. Well, go ahead and correct me. Tell me what I got wrong. Well, one, I don't know which story you're talking about, but yeah, add that correction in the chat, the one you need, and then we'll go from there to see what you're talking about. All right. Let's see. Y'all have so many comments today. Hayward County. All right. We're gonna keep it moving because I got some other things we need to get to. All right. Y'all are not having it tonight. Somebody said, and they're gonna lose their land this time. And every time lousy politicians, it kind of loses the comment. But I get what you're saying. Pretty much they're gonna get the land. I'm telling you that. That's the sad part. They're gonna end up getting it, unfortunately, most likely. Um, Keynotes, policy that backs the BS. Iron Will says, but black people are always accused of blaming race. That's because it's always been an issue used against us. Like, we just catch smoke for everything. Somebody said, look, Nan said, hurry up and get to Frank Ocean. I'm about to go to sleep. I'm getting to him. Don't worry. Let's see. Okay, let me get to these other topics and then we'll go to the chat. All right. Let's see. Did I want to talk about the CEO? I don't know if you guys saw this clip with the CEO that was giving her reasoning as to why she gets a bonus, but everybody else doesn't. I might come back to it, but let me see. Let me just jump into Frank Ocean real quick. Okay. So Frank Ocean. As we know, Coachella, which to me I think is a festival that's gotten so bought out and has become so watered down, where really it's for influencers at this point. People pay high amounts of money to, get ripped off. Frank Ocean was the headliner or one of the headliners for Coachella this year. He's been catching some smoke because I guess people weren't really fond of the performance. From what I saw and what I had read, he only got to do about 35 minutes of the show because there was the curfew. Coachella also got charged for like $100-something thousand for being over curfew with the first week because they do it over a 2-week span, like 2 different weekends. But Frank caught a lot of smoke for his performance because from the clips that I saw and what people were saying, they're like, yeah, it just wasn't really that great. There were moments where he wasn't really doing a whole lot on the stage. There's some moments where, he didn't even have a microphone in some instances, and then he was an hour late. And then when it was over with, it was kind of like he didn't care. And then in addition, some of the details that came out was that, okay, well, he had some kind of injury before, so that might have played a role. And then apparently he wanted an ice rink on the stage and he changed his mind and wanted them to take it down. So that played a role into the show. All I'm gonna say is this. Frank's music is all right to me, but as a live performer, I feel like what they got is what he's always given. Frank to me just does not seem like somebody who likes the idea of being put in front of large audiences. He's kind of, I guess, elusive. But my thing is, if you're gonna charge people all this money, because these Coachella things are expensive, if you're gonna charge people all this money to come see you, the least you can do is give them the show they paid for. That's how I look at it. I know people want to start saying, well, no, that's the kind of artist he is, or he has whatever condition. And I will say I understand he had a brother that passed not too long ago and everything. And I'm not going to take away from that experience, but I think if you're in this position where you're not ready yet, then don't come back out yet. Take the time you need before you come back out there. I just think it sucks when people pay an arm and a leg for stuff and then they don't get what it is they paid for. I think that sucks. And then even with the idea of the ice rink, my thing is, well, one, even before everything, Frank was never one to do a whole lot to begin with. So I was like, well, what was going to happen on the ice rink? That was the other thing. So when the folks were getting kind of mad with Frank, I was like, well, y'all are acting like he was going to go up there and spin on his head or something. He was going to still give you the same kind of elusive performance where he likes to hold the mic like right here. He'll do this thing right here. Or he'll sing like this and sing the song and look down and go to the next song and go to the next song. So I don't know exactly what everybody was going to want. The only beef that I would have had is just being the hour late and then only doing 30 minutes. That's the beef I would have more so had. Because I feel like we're just in a space where for a lot of performers, they get away with a whole lot. You know what I mean? Where for some folks, bare minimum is the standard. And it's not to attack him because it's not just him, but he's just never really been, at least for me, an artist that does it for me. I like his lyrics. I like some of his music. As a live performer, I'm good. Like he's not somebody I'd want to pay to see just because I've seen what he does. He doesn't do enough for me. That's me. And again, that's me coming from a space where I grew up in the era of the big visual performance. That's what I like. So if I don't see the big visual performers, then I want the big singers that sing. He's cool, you know. But I don't know. That's interesting. I just think for all the money people pay for something like a Coachella, I would have been hot. Like even when I told y'all when I went to the Escape show and Monica had to end her set early because the venue needed to close. At least in that instance, she actually no, I was still mad after that. Yeah, I was hot. But because there were additional acts on the ticket and you got so much of a show, there were still other things happening. But I just think that sucks. You see a lot of people that just be doing like the bare minimum. And again, a lot of y'all chose to gas up a lot of these entertainers that they just move off of aesthetic and vibe, or vibes and aesthetics. So it's like that's what you're gonna get on the stage is vibes and aesthetics. So I think that sucks. But you know, hey, maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see. And I know that they usually perform twice. So maybe who knows? Maybe he'll have a much better showing next weekend. But I think that sucks. I would have been pissed. But again, Coachella's never been my kind of thing to want to go to. I also think it sucks. Anybody who had to perform after Beyonce, like that really, really sucks. Dang it, now this thing wants to freeze and start cooking. All right, well, we're gonna see if my live is gonna still be alive or not. So y'all pray my strength. Crap. So my page is unresponsive. Somebody hit me on Instagram and let me know if my live is still going or not. I don't know if it's live. So somebody hit me on Instagram, but I'm just gonna keep going and we'll push through this and hopefully this thing comes back. Like I said, it's time for a new MacBook. This thing be cooking. This thing is tired of me. What else did I want to cover here? Let's see here. Boom, I'm still live. Thank you, pals. I do want to cover the CEO bonus really quick. So let me see if I can find this link. I just want you to hear the nonsense she was saying really quick because it kind of highlights the fact that our economy and the way that people work and what we have to deal with is total nonsense. All right, this is only going to be a minute. So, all right, here she goes. Now, this is her justifying. She took, I think I've seen 3 different figures. I've seen one figure that said 6.4 million. I've seen one figure that said 4 million. I've seen one figure that said 1.2 million. Either way, she got her bonus, but the employees didn't. This is her response to everyone's, outrage.
So all right. Questions came through about how can we stay motivated if we're not going to get a bonus? What can we do? What can we do? Some of them were nice and some of them were not so nice. So I'm going to address this head on. The most important thing we can do right now is focus on the things that we can control. None of us could have predicted COVID. None of us could have predicted supply chain. None of us could have predicted bank failures. But what we can do is stay in front of our customers, provide the best customer service we can, get our orders out our door, treat each other well, be kind, be respectful, focus on the future because it will be bright. It's not good to be in a situation we're in today, but we're not going to be here forever. It is going to get better. So lead by example, treat people well, talk to them, be kind, and get after it. Don't ask about what are we going to do if we don't get a bonus. Get the damn $26 million. Spend your time and your effort thinking about the $26 million we need and not thinking about what you're going to do if we don't get a bonus. All right? Can I get some commitment for that? I would appreciate that. I had an old boss who said to me one time, you can visit Pity City, but you can't live there. So people, leave Pity City. Let's get it done. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to cut it right there. So the part that's so interesting to me, so again, I'll just say, if I was the CEO of some giant business and we didn't have a great year and we could not do bonuses, that just means that, at least for optics, maybe that year it's probably a good idea to not receive my bonus since nobody else got theirs. And then to pretty much tear down everyone and say, well, because of whatever, situations, we didn't meet our budget. So we're going to just say, y'all just got to work harder, but smile while doing it. Like there's constantly this conversation where the labor force is burdened with having to carry the weight of everything all the time, right? And then like when they do whatever they do, they don't get anything for it. They get the bare minimum. People in this country and a lot of these positions and everything, they already don't get paid enough, right? They don't get paid what they're supposed to get paid. They don't have the kind of support they should get. There's just so many different things that take place. And then those up top continue to, get what it is they get, write themselves bonuses, give themselves all these different benefits and packages and everything else like that. Like the biggest beef I had was when COVID hit and the airline industry was suffering and they got all that bailout money. And the first thing a lot of these airlines did was give their CEOs bonuses. I'm just like, this is what we're talking about. So it's just, you see the fact that a lot of these people just are not, it's not about the people. And sometimes it's not even about the good of the company. It's just, people just want to align their pockets sometimes. And I think that freaking sucks. And I think you're going to get to a space where people get tired of the nonsense. You know what I mean? And people are going to get to a space where they're just not going to be the kind of workers you want them to be. You want people to sit here and overproduce and overproduce. And each year you have some kind of quota, you meet the quota, and then you want people to gain even more or do even more. You know what I mean? And then you keep raising the bar, but you don't want to compensate people. And then everything is punitive. You want to, light up the folks when things don't go well and lay off folks every single time, but you want to secure the positions and the benefits that come to the people up top. And I think that freaking sucks. Oh, so I guess what I'll do is I'll just read my live on my phone. That way I know I'm still on and we can keep our conversation going. All right. All right. Let me see what you guys are saying here. Somebody said even her voice sounds annoying. And then she tried to do that thing where she does the soft talking and love each other more, treat each other right, be kind, be good. I'm like, the people, okay, y'all love to do that too. Like the most evil people love to do that soft voice when the smoke comes. I told y'all about Paula White and her nonsense. Like they love to do that. Even a lot of the people in office, when they get caught up with some nonsense, either they talk like they're caught off guard and they're just so flustered by whatever happens. So I just wish we could all come together. Or they do that thing where they do the whole soft talking, even though they're saying it's really, really terrible policy that they're endorsing. You know what I mean? All right, let me see what you guys said in the chat, and then we're gonna keep it going here. Somebody said Frank sounds like he was being a diva. Somebody said an ice rink. Billy Flood said, don't do the show. I'm just all about give people what they pay for, especially because tickets have gotten so high, right? They charge people like an arm and a leg for concerts now. Like just going back 15 years, it used to be outrageous to pay $100 or $200 or $300 for a concert ticket. Now that's the bare minimum. Like there's a certain artist who I would like to see, but even the very back row of this stadium show is $300. I was like, I'm not paying $300 to bump my head on the roof, and I'm definitely not paying $1,000 to a somewhat decent seat. So that sucks. What else did they say on here? And her CEO bonus probably would have covered the bonus of at least 15 employees. And that's, yeah, exactly. And even though her bonus would not cover everybody, it's the optics, right? It's the idea of I'm in the trenches with you. They at least have that approach. Even with my team, when I was still at the center, everybody can say I fought for everybody's salary. I tried to get because I worked very linear. Yes, I was the boss, but I didn't have to push my weight and run that around. I wanted everybody to eat, especially for the work that we did and how much dedication it took. And we were all grossly underpaid. I wanted everybody to make as close to what I was making as possible. And there were some limitations where it's like, well, this is your position. Somebody in this position just cannot get this because you're at that. I'm like, okay, well, what's the closest they could get to it? Especially like one of my coworkers who at that point had 2 kids, had just, had the new baby and everything. It's like, okay, they need a raise because, they got to drive an hour to work and blah, 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 blah. I need my team to be happy because in order for us to be able to serve and do the work in our capacity, you're going to have to pay people what they're worth. And at that point, my center was racking in all these accolades and awards and national top tier. Yeah, I need some national top tier money. It's not about the money, but it's about making sure people can still even have a livelihood and live their life. You know what I mean? All right, let me keep reading some comments here. Alan said, if the tickets cost rent, I'm watching it on YouTube. I'm pretty much right there. Man. Somebody said she sounds like Monique cussing people out and then saying my love at the end. I love me some Monique. Somebody said I would have jumped through the phone in the Zoom. And like, did you guys remember there was like an influx of videos where we saw people being laid off via Zoom, especially like 2020, 2021. And they would always say some nonsense and tell these people, oh, we're about to lay all y'all off. And then get mad at the people being outraged. Or they would set it up where the people couldn't respond or the mics would be turned off and all you could do was watch. Like, there's some shadiness going on around here. Like, man. Say great gowns, beautiful gowns. Y'all are lighting this guy up. Summer Walker's another one. Like, I like her music, but performance-wise, I'm good. They be so dry. Like I wish, and I get it. Things change. Every generation has a different standard. Everybody's gonna have something different. And I recognize that we're also in a space where a lot of times people really love to connect with lyrics. I think that's why, somebody like a Summer Walker or a Frank Ocean really appeal because their lyrics connect with people. And I love that. That's great. But in addition to the lyrics being great, I need the performances to match. Like I want to, at least for me, the people that I'm big fans of, I was big fans of them, especially as children, because to me, they were superheroes. I felt like they could do everything. As a kid, the reason I really, really liked like a Michael Jackson or a Bobby Brown or a Janet or even like a TLC, even Hammer when I was little, like to me, these people were like superheroes. I used to feel like there was nothing they couldn't do when they got on stage. I think I talked about it before. Y'all are gonna laugh, but when I was really little, Hammer was it for me. And I just remember there's an award show where he's doing Can't Touch This. And he does this little stage match, this stage trick where, he's dancing on the stage, blah, 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 blah. He walks and it gives the illusion that he gets inside this box and the box goes up on the stage and it explodes. And as the box explodes, he's kind of like dancing in the box. You see his shadow. And then out of nowhere, the camera pans to the back of the venue and he's at the back of the venue. And you're like, how did he get there? Really, it was like a camera trick. He went to the side of the stage and then his body double went inside of the cage thing. And then they were figuring out however to get him to the back. But when you're like a kid or whatever, all of that stuff is magical. Like as a teenager, as a kid, when I would watch Janet, I always felt there was nothing she couldn't do on stage in regards to choreography and how she would, do the exhibitions of her songs. Like there was nothing I didn't think she could do. Now that she's gotten older, she's about 56, 57 now. She still gets it in on the stage, but I recognize time is kicking in. So now a lot of her show is more so based on the musicality, which I love as well, because you can still have a really great time. She's still dancing, but all of these entertainers that I really like, or Michael, or Bobby, like they had all of this energy, or TLC, like all these different folks. Because again, I was into the visual entertainers. I just felt that when you would watch their shows, it was the talk of the town. And those were the people that you tried to copy and emulate in front of the mirror, in the bathroom. If you were on a dance team or something, those were the people's concerts and videos that you would put on when y'all were trying to get ideas for the formations or whatever you were going to do. And as time progressed, as I got older, it would turn into people like Usher and, some of the other folks who do a little bit of everything. And even if you're not a dancer, I just feel you should be able to give a show. Somebody like a Fantasia is not going to be spinning on her head, but you're going to get a great show. A Luke James is going to give you an amazing show. You know what I mean? I'm not a fan of folks who go up there and do the bare minimum and people say, oh, well, it's because, that's their personality. That's cool, but it's boring. Don't charge. I don't want to pay to be bored. I want to be moved. School me. I want to take notes. Hell, if entertainers were a lot better, I probably would have never been making music. Because if you followed my R&B is Dead series, when I first started, I used to say I would never do music because I didn't think I could sit in a room with people like a Tevin Campbell and all of them. And as time progressed, I was like, with the people they got out, I might as well go ahead and do a little shibba doop doop doops because clearly they let anything slide around here. All right, let me see here. What are we saying in this thing? This thing is still frozen. I cannot wait to buy me. Look, it's tax season. I done found my taxes. I'm getting me some money back. We getting us a new MacBook. This MacBook is about as old as this channel. All right. Somebody said vibes. Can you understand what some of the folks are saying? I don't really listen to a lot of them like that. I play them on occasion, but if I keep reaching my ears, because I like scratch myself with it, I scratch myself and cut myself. I keep touching it, making sure I'm not bleeding on the camera. So, all right. There's no signal here. But yeah, a lot of these folks, I'll kind of put some of their music in my playlist shuffles just to kind of be in the loop with what's current, because I don't want to just be a one-trick pony and be stuck in the era of my favorite artist. But man, some of these folks are boring. Like, put you straight to sleep. Some good sleep, some nursing home performances. I want some shows, man. Man. Y'all are lighting these people up. V said, I love Monique and she should have got more support with the Netflix lawsuit. And I said what I said. And I love that she got what was rightfully hers. And now she's going after Paramount too. Like, give her royalties for the Parkers. Y'all playing games, right? Okay. Let me jump into... I have so many things I wrote. I don't know if we're going to get through all these. There's a lot of stuff. Also, best wishes to Jamie Foxx. They haven't really said what the condition was, but he's been hospitalized. So hopefully everything works out for Jamie. I see these kids are doing the Benadryl challenge. Kids, I understand it might be some adults doing it too. Pretty much, this is a challenge where they just take as many of them as they can. And there's been a child that has actually died from doing this. Um, Remember that time we had the conversation about how, as each generation progresses, the threshold of what is entertaining becomes more extreme because we get desensitized to the old guard and what is new has to constantly kind of push a new envelope. We're now in a space where people put their lives at risk to go viral or for clout. It's kind of like when the people were eating the Tide Pods a few years back. Now it's like y'all are literally being some drug addicts popping some Benadryls. And so there's this kid that took like 12 or 14 of them and died, and there's other kids that are doing it. I think TikTok has taken down that hashtag to kind of yank down um, that movement to stop people from wanting to do that. But my thing again, and I used to have a conversation with one of my kids about this because she loved the idea of going viral and she wanted to go viral so bad. So she was always trying to get somebody caught up or expose somebody or get something recorded. Look, she even lost her job recording her boss having a meltdown. I'm like, listen, everything is not worth the clout because again, clout is temporary. And I think, and this is not to go after TikTokers, but I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of content creators that make what you call like the quick content, that's the talk of the town for the day, and then you move on to the next thing. I think that's why so many of them have burnt out because for every milestone they reach, people want more and more and more, and then you're challenged to have to do something even bigger. And when you run out of ideas, or if you're not a very creative person, the only thing you really can jump to is shock factor or things that are very extreme or chaotic. And so I just want people to be safer with the things they want to jump into. I understand, fame is a hell of a drug for some people, and I understand, but common sense, folks. Like, it's interesting. We've gone from the cinnamon challenge to now because look, cinnamon challenge at one point, people are like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And now you're popping Benadryl. Just take as many as you can. Just pop them all and go for it and see what happens. See how many views you get. Like, people, what about doing? My goodness. All right, let's see. Belize Gal 80 said, what, laid off on Zoom? Oh, yeah, I saw a bunch of different viral clips where companies were laying people off on Zoom. Like, that's some crazy stuff. Iron Will said, I was a huge Hammer fan, especially being from the Bay Area. I was still rocking with Hammer even during the Too Legit to Quit era, because by then people were saying he was too corny. That was my album. I used to play the mess out of Find Yourself a Friend. Gaining Momentum is on my gym playlist now. I still be playing that one. Count It Off is still on my gym playlist. That's the one with Do Not Pass Me By on it. What else is on that one? What's the first? Even the first song, The Way We Roll. I used to play that Hammer album. Like, I enjoyed it. It was a good time. I liked Hammer because he had musicality in the music. Even if y'all thought he was corny or cheesy, the musicality was there. He knew how to really craft and have his songs created in a way where even if you don't like his lyrics, the music would just be jamming. Because that Counted Off song, it's like a 5-minute song, and I used to just be jamming when I was little. And when you're little, when you're like 3, 4, or 5, and you don't know how to dance, all you do is just jump. Well, at least that's what I used to do. I used to just be jumping off furniture. There's a scar. You can't see it because I got hair, but there's a scar on the back of my head from falling off of a bunk bed when I was watching Hammerman, the cartoon, trying to copy him. Almost cracked my head open and fell off the bunk bed. And it was in military house. And, the military houses don't be having carpet. It just be like tile floors. We were at somebody's house. And what a time. Then they just going to give me a popsicle. Like, I was supposed to make stuff better. Anyway. Let's see. Somebody says, yeah, they're literally dying for attention. I'm telling you, the Hammer performance I was talking about, I think it's Can't Touch This from the AMAs. I think that's what I'm referencing, where he goes from one side of the stage to the other. If y'all don't stop telling me Janet cannot sing for the millionth time, Janet can carry a tune. If Janet couldn't sing, you wouldn't like her music. The thing is this, y'all don't like Janet because Janet is not a powerhouse vocalist. Janet does just enough that works her pocket. I have never said Janet could sit in a room with Whitney as a vocalist, but she's never tried to. And that's why I respect Janet, because Janet recognizes her lane. She will never sign up to sing the national anthem. She's not going to sign up to do anything that's not outside of her comfort zone. However, there are a ton of humming refrigerator singers that y'all go up for that sing in this same pocket on every song for 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 albums, and they get on stage and sing in this same dry pocket and have uneventful songs that take you nowhere, where if you've heard one of their songs, you've heard them all. At least with Janet, there is layers to her catalog. So maybe she doesn't have the biggest voice, but she's still going to give you something. So you can get a scream, because people love to say, well, Janet whispers. But then in response to that, I'm like, okay, well, where is the whispering on Scream? Where is the whispering on Black Cat? Where is the whispering on I Get Lonely? Where's the whispering on Together Again, or All For You, or the song You, or pretty much anything off the Rhythm Nation album, whether it's Miss You Much or what else? What else did she actually do some singing on? Or my favorite song, 24 Play, or Anytime, Any Play. Like Janet, I think has a pretty tone. It works. She has a voice for pop music. I think the reason she always got so much smoke is because she came out in the era of the powerhouse singer. You got to think when she finally got into her own lane, she has to compete with the Vesta Williams, the Whitney Houston, the Phyllis Hyman, the Mickey Howard, the Shirley Murdoch, the Michelle is a little bit later. All of these singers that like sing. And I think because she was so successful, she often caught a whole bunch of smoke. And my thing is just, if you're gonna go after Janet, then you better not be a fan of Janae Aiko, Summer Walker, all of these ones that sing right here on every song for the whole album, and the whole album is 2 hours long, and every song is sung just like this. I don't want to hear it. So if you come after Janet, you better be, every time I go and look in your playlist, it better be nothing but powerhouse singers. Because again, I think she had the best of both worlds as far as pop and R&B. And I think that's why her music was able to connect, because she gave you balance. So you could get the party songs, you could get the dance songs, you could get the love songs, you could get the sex songs, you could get the songs about fixing the world. And on top of that, you were going to get a performance. So I will always ride for Janet. No ifs, ands, or buts, especially in modern times when 57-year-old Janet is still better than half the entertainers that y'all go up for right now. But I really do like some of the newer kids too. Anyway. And that's what love believes, gal. I'm not even frying you up. We always joke. She always says this every time. You said sing, not carry a tune. I didn't say she could sing. I said she could carry a tune. That's all I need her to do. You just got to be in key. That's the other thing, too. When her mic is on, it's interesting that most of the times she's in key. There's not too many Janet performances where you hear the bad notes. Okay, that's the interesting thing. I will also say, and then I'm going to get off my Janet soapbox. This might just be me going through withdrawal because I can't watch any tour clips until my show on the 6th and the 14th. I said this before. One of the things I wish they didn't do, I wish they did not overdub her concert DVDs, because it gives you the illusion that her voice is not very strong. But thanks to YouTube, the live versions or the original versions of the Velvet Rope Tour and All For You Tour are on YouTube, and you can actually hear what she actually does as a live vocalist. So check those out when you get a chance. Anyway, enough on Janet. We love her. I love me some Janet. Look, Janet's going to be 110. I'm going to be however old I am in a wheelchair, and we still going to be up here arguing about it. But again, in this modern time where at this point, vocal talent is not even a standard to be in music. And that's even with the rappers who have no musicality that are getting popular through TikTok or whatever. And then you put on some kind of rhythm and they're fighting against the rhythm to stay on beat with whatever lyrics they got. I'm just not having it. I love Janet because she stays in her lane. There's another dancing singer that I wish would have done that, but just swore up and down that they were Natalie Cole. And so they always volunteered to sing and everything. And you just be like, please stop. Like, and I mean that with love. Please stop. Just stay in your lane. You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry. Let's see. Y'all be playing in Janet's face. Somebody said y'all maybe go down the Janet rabbit hole. No, it's no. Believe Scout 80 says this every time I mention Janet on every live, so it's all in fun. All right. Anyway, somebody said if you can sing, you don't need to dance. I totally agree. If you can sing, you don't need to dance. But I think again, the performer has changed. People like visual shows, so go out and give a little bit of whatever you need to give. But for me, I prefer my singers to just sing. Like if I go see Jasmine Sullivan, I don't need her to try to do 8 count because she's gonna give me enough already. If I go and who else? Oh, like I got my guy mom. I told you I'm going to see after 7. I know when Kevon Edmonds opens his mouth, he's going to sing everybody down. I don't need him to do no spins on his head or nothing. It's not needed because you're there for the vocals and everything. But yeah, for a lot of entertainers, I like an entertainer that does a bit of everything. Like I want a full experience, and so entertainers do their different things. Some of y'all are saying J-Lo, as far as she's one of them. That wasn't who I was thinking about, but I agree with her as well because she definitely will sign up to sing something. The fact that y'all let J-Lo do the inauguration, she was ready. All right. Anyway, somebody said she demonstrated a little vocal ability and I get lonely. I'll take it. She did. She said, Belize Gala 80 said, I love you, Calvin. I love you too. This is a conversation from a place of love. But like I said, that's why I rock with Janet. I just said I like her because she stays in her lane. Like now, if Janet was signing up to do the Star Spangled Banner everywhere, and then I'd be like, all right, Janet, ma'am. And I don't know how she do it. She probably do the whole thing in her head voice. But then I'd be like, all right, ma'am, just do what you do. Stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to, okay? But she doesn't, which is why I rock with her. And she's even said she does not think she's the greatest singer in the world and does not think she's the greatest dancer in the world. She just does what she loves. So because she loves it, I love it. Somebody said, would Adele, do you want Adele to dance like Britney Spears? No, Adele don't need to dance either. Like all these people, there's visual entertainers and there are singers that stand and sing. You have your category of the visual entertainers. That's the Chris Browns, the Ushers, the Janets, the Sierras, the who else? Yeah, I'm gonna light some of you K-pop fans up as well. I saw that crap y'all put on social media the other day. Y'all tried it. Anyway, but yeah, you have your visual entertainers where they're not just gonna stand and sing. You're gonna get a full, almost like you're at a Broadway production. Then you have your balladeers and those that you sing with, and they sing these beautiful songs, or whatever. Then you have the kind of musician entertainers that kind of sit and play. And so everybody has their different lanes. Everything is, and then sometimes you have the entertainers that don't really have any talent. They're just aesthetic. I mean, they're just fun to look at. So I think there's different layers. Anyway, here y'all go. Now y'all about to get with J-Lo. I'm bouncing. Now I'm bouncing. I'm still sticking to what I said on that last live. I think it still makes more sense for her to say I'm bouncing and I'm bouncing as opposed to I'm out, son. All right. And but plus the good thing with Janet, since she doesn't have a huge catalog of those power vocal type songs, she'll always be able to tour as long as her knees work. You know what I mean? Her voice is never gonna burn out because her songs are pretty easy for her to sing. Smart move. All right. I feel bad for some of the people who have these really big catalogs and time wears down their voices, and now they have to either rearrange their whole catalog so it fits in the key, or they stubbornly choose to still try to sing some songs in the original key and they sound terrible, unfortunately. But God bless them. All right. Candace Owens, I'm not gonna spend too much time on because I don't like giving her attention. But I will say I don't understand why people keep going after Lizzo all the time. If Lizzo is not your cup of tea, that is fine. But the constant aim to attack her for trying to be comfortable in her own skin is starting to get on my nerves. Between Candace Owens and Boyce Watkins, who constantly have something to say about Lizzo, I could see if Lizzo was somebody who ran her mouth and bothered people and did things that were dangerous and constantly was, in getting bad press. She literally plays her flute. I guess she twerks when she feels like it, and she does her shows. Leave Lizzo alone. So Candace Owens did some nonsense where she was talking about people are lying when they think that when they claim that they're attracted to her, and she's not somebody that people have on their walls. And pretty much try to say she's not an attractive person. And I will never come on this platform and talk about how a black woman looks for various reasons. But Candace, you got some nerve, and I'm gonna leave it right there. I don't understand why people constantly keep going after her. She keeps catching all these strays for no reason. And in addition to the fact, I also saw what Candace had said about, there was a company that decided to be a bit more inclusive with their marketing and to highlight people that were disabled to market their products. And she did this whole rant about, no, we've gotten so far with the woke culture or the PC culture, and who really wants to see somebody in a wheelchair modeling, whatever outfit. I think it's interesting to see how low people will go for the check. Like I said, she's playing this game because, again, her livelihood at this point is being a mouthpiece for white supremacy. So she's going to do what she does to play that game. And, it's sad because eventually you burn out and eventually they move on to the next token. And so, enjoy this time while you're here, Candace, but it won't be here forever. So keep playing these silly games. But if I was Lizzo, I would have sat on her, to be honest. Like, sit on her. And I support it. If Lizzo wants to bust her upside the head with the flute, I fully support it. And if she does, I hope she records it and it goes viral and we'll talk about it here. But leave Lizzo alone. That woman just tries to mind her business. And I don't understand the obsession. I understand that she is overweight. So be it. So is most of America at this point. With all the crap that's in our food, I don't even know how skinny people exist. I don't know how I'm skinny. If y'all see what kind of nonsense I be eating. But no, I think it's corny. And I'm like, if we want to go there, I don't see y'all giving the same smoke to Adele. I understand she lost the weight, but y'all weren't calling her all those different names when she was bigger. Y'all like to pick and choose who y'all want to get behind and who y'all want to be grossed out by. And everybody just shut up. All right. Anyway. Anastasia says, update on So What Happened. I had to pause because there was a really great opportunity that came. I need to take care of that. The So What Happened is still a thing. I just need to finish recording it. Mariah was very hard to do because there was so much. And like I said, on my So What Happened, I covered Glitter through Emancipation, and I went in that order. So instead of the other So It Happens where we talk about them being on the high and then we talk about the come down, it's the opposite where we start at the come down and end on the high. I was like, let me start ending on a good note. Because some people, I think, they look at my So What Happened videos from the wrong context and they think that it's me trying to bash the artist. Understand, if I do a So What Happened on any artist, it's because I am a fan of that artist and I want to protect their legacy. And I don't like when people try to say certain things about artists and it's with the wrong information. Like even with my Brandy one, somebody had got mad and was like, I don't like this video because you didn't acknowledge the fact that the reason Brandy fell off was because Beyonce came out. I was like, y'all love to paint that narrative as well. So if we want to have that conversation, if we're talking about the Aphrodisiac album of '04, that argument doesn't really hold up. If you wanted to give the argument of a lot of people could not survive in a space of Beyonce, you can make that argument maybe after 2008, but you couldn't make that argument in 2004. Even though Dangerously in Love was a big album, Beyonce didn't have that kind of pull and that kind of pull yet. And to that point, by the time the first single for Aphrodisiac came out, as far as Talk About Our Love, that came out at the time that the final single from Dangerously in Love had already run its course. Naughty Girl was pretty much one and done at that point. So no radio programmer is going to say, I'm not playing Talk About Our Love because we're going to play Beyonce. There was no Beyonce to play because at that point, they've already played the main singles from the album. And at this point, she's getting ready to go back in the studio and work on Destiny Fulfilled. So this is why I like to do things like So It Happened, to put things into context, because people at some point love to just kind of create narratives. And we all love our favorite artists and we want our artists to be better than everybody else's. I get it. But we also don't want to get in the habit of just putting things out there because sometimes those things last forever. It's kind of like when people used to say Sierra was a man, right? And where did that stem from? You have the guy, Nolan Strong, that worked at allhiphop.com. The rumor was already kind of floating around. He was the one who published it. It goes viral. And this is before MySpace or Twitter and everything. So it's harder to dispel rumors. And so, I think that may have been one of the reasons why somebody like a Sierra kind of revamped her image around 07, 08, 09 and kind of did a bit more of a sex appeal thing. Because again, that's not a fun rumor to have about yourself. If people paint you out to be something that you're not. And there's nothing wrong with anybody existing however they exist. But the idea of the reason that people even put that rumor out was mainly just because she was tall. And remember back in the day when she used to make that face when she was really in her dance moves and she kind of made those like faces, so people took all those elements and said, oh, well, she must be a man and ran with it. So again, a lot of times the legacy of different entertainers and stuff can easily be swayed by the masses. So that's why I like doing the So What Happened video, to kind of clear up things. So it's kind of like, let's just talk about why some of these projects don't do well, not because of whatever random rumor you heard, but let's talk about the structure of the industry. Let's talk about, the politics of what was happening, where that artist was in their career, how the world was. Like, there's so many layers to these conversations. So that's why I do that. Anyway, back to my point. But that was a good question, Anastasia. Just follow her channel too. She has a channel. Anastasia, put your channel in the chat. I forgot what it's called, but she has a channel as well, and she does some really good deep dives as well. And congratulations on the baby. All right. All right, where are we at here? Well, y'all still talking about Janet. See what y'all done started. Where are we at here? Now y'all like the Velvet Rope tour. Oh, okay. No, I was kidding. Where are we at? But now y'all cussing out. Every time I bring up one artist, y'all be cussing out everybody else. Candace Owens, I don't like talking about her because I don't like giving her any more, labrum or any more on platforms to leech off of. But she really works my nerve so much. Especially when they had her on that dang Revolt Summit about the state of Black America. I'm like, she don't even like us. Okay, like in addition to looking at who she's married to, but like look at how she moves. Anytime she has anything to address with Black people, it's always coming from a standpoint of that we're all stupid and she's the smartest in the room and we need to do what she says. And normally what she says is something that aligns with white nationalism. I am not here for it. All right. Where are we at here? Somebody said Tevin Campbell for the next So What Happened. So Mariah's the next one. I was actually going to do Sierra, but then I switched to Mariah because more of y'all kept saying Mariah. I need to do another male artist. I don't know who I was going to do. When I first started the series, I thought of Boys to Men. I don't know. We'll see. They take a lot of time to put together, though. I hate that they take so long, but because they're so detailed, it's a lot of research. I really try to make sure I do right by the artist, because if you do wrong, they fans gonna let you have it. They're gonna let you know. Look, even the Janet fans was cussing me out on the Janet one. I'm like, hey, y'all cussing me out? Okay, whatever. Cisco would be an interesting one. All right. Is there anything else I want to cover? We've kind of covered most of what I needed to cover. Um, Derrick Chauvin. That's pretty much everything. Oh, somebody asked me about Marques Houston. All I'll say is I'm not dating anybody that's 18. All right. There's nothing an 18-year-old can do for me. That's like one of my kids almost. Wouldn't happen to me. So I wouldn't date an 18-year-old, and I'm not marrying a 19-year-old. Something don't sound right now, because Marques Houston is in his 40s. And I saw the bit where he was saying, well, younger women don't have a lot of baggage. That's why he likes to date younger women, because the older ones have baggage. But I'm like, I just think, and this is no judgment, because there are some people who are in relationships where there may be a 20-year gap. That kind of gap makes sense when one person is 60 and the other is 40. To me, an 18-year-old to me is still a kid. I'm sorry. They're adults legally, but they're children. They haven't even lived yet. And I think it's almost unfair for you in your 40s to go and snatch away, and now his wife is like 24 or something now, but to snatch away those years from somebody, because you've already done all your shenanigans. You got to be wild in your 20s and 30s, and now you want to settle, and then you get somebody who's like 18 who hasn't even lived yet, and now you want them to kind of live a settled life with you, and then let's be honest, half the time the marriages don't work, and then they break up and split up. But at that point, that 18-year-old is now like in their mid 30s. They've missed out on their 20s and all that time for discovering themselves and everything else like that. I think that's a very selfish approach with relationships. That's just my opinion. All I'll say is you don't got to worry about me dating an 18-year-old. I don't even think I'll date anybody under 25 at this point, because it's just like I'm in a different space, and I've been able to live and experience different things. So there's definitely a window that closes, where it's kind of like anything from this window and back, it might be too young for me. Hell, 25 is too young. Maybe more like 27. That's where I'm at. Somebody asked me, oh, this was interesting. There was a video that had gone viral with the guy that got like the height surgery. Now, mind you, that's not anything new. I used to see this on the Maury show when I was a kid, where you keep breaking the person's femur bone. You like break it like by like a millimeter, and then they spread it and hold the bone like that, and then the marrow fills in and hardens, and now it's new bone, and they just keep breaking and breaking and breaking until the person gets a few inches taller. Would I do that? No. I don't think I'm short. Well, I do think I'm short, but I don't think I'm like short. But my question is the proportions of the rest of your body. How does that work? Because if you get these extra long legs, but you still got short arms and everything else and a short torso, how does that work? I don't know. I couldn't be me. I would love to be taller, but I'm not about to break my leg every 3 weeks to get taller. It's not worth it. And then there's no guarantee that everything even works in a manner that's safe. And I guess the guy was saying, well, I did it because dating wasn't going too well. Well, it certainly ain't about to go well now. I think if dating isn't going well, that's how you just pretty much move. If you're that insecure about height, I just think you have to kind of reevaluate, because like I said, there's somebody for everybody. I see a whole lot of short folks that have beautiful spouses. You know what I mean? There's somebody for everybody. I just think sometimes folks go into the wrong pools and then get mad because, it's, find something that works for you. There's something for everybody out there. That's all I'll say. My phone is on 5%. So let me get my charger. Actually, I'm gonna wind this down anyway. What else? Oh, Freaknik. That'll be an interesting documentary to watch. I'll just say I'm glad that my parents were always very open with me about their younger years. I don't got to worry about my parents being a freaknik, though. They were too old by then, all right? But that will be interesting to see what happens with that, as far as the documentary and the backlash and the people freaking out. We'll see what happens, but I do think it's going to open some very interesting conversations. So we'll see how people move as it goes along. Last thing I think I wrote down. Oh yeah, I see that the guy from Firefest, he's no longer in prison, and he actually wants to reattempt and do a second version or a new Fire Festival, pretty much. If you remember, Fire Festival was that festival where it was supposed to be exclusive, right? And they were going to do all these different things, and you could go, you know, it was going to be in Bahamas on this exclusive island, and you could swim with the dolphins and then play with the pigs, and you were going to be in villas and have lobster tail and all these special things to eat and everything. And then, you know, the whole thing was a sham. It was not funded properly. There was no money to do anything. You know, people got ripped off. They didn't have the villas. People was eating cheese sandwiches and, you know, lots of lawsuits, $100 million lawsuits and everything. It's just interesting to see how some people get chance after chance after chance after chance. We'll see what happens with that. I personally would not be fool enough to even deal with what's his last name? Something McFarlane or something like that. McFarth, whatever. Anybody who gets behind him is foolish. I'm sorry. It's just foolish. I wouldn't do it, but nonsense. All right, I'm gonna read a few comments and then we're gonna wrap this up because it is 12:19 and I need to be up at 6 because Wednesday's my day to go in. All right. Somebody said, "Oh, folk, this says like he doesn't have baggage." That's about Marques Houston. Plus, that whole TUG camp. Anybody with that Chris Stokes connection, I'm good on. Honestly, they got other stuff they need to worry about. Let's see. Portia said, "Did I see Tevin Campbell's interview? The uncensored. I did see it. By the way, two people I have been trying to get to interview on my channel. So let's make it happen, please. Tevin Campbell is one of them. I would love to have a discussion with him just about music. I don't want to jump into anybody's personal life. I just want to talk the music. Like I said, I think his catalog is very underrated. I would really love to do an interview with Tevin Campbell, and Chante Moore is my number 2. Those are the 2 that I have been fighting and clawing to get. I ain't really been having too much luck. My channel ain't big enough, but put in a word for me, folks. I think those would be 2 really great interviews. Charlene McKinney said, wasn't she a runaway also? From what I remember reading, and that's about Marques Houston's wife, I believe she was. She had even been reported missing. Yeah. Let's see. I did see that Tevin Campbell interview though on Unsung. I wish they would have went a little bit more in depth about like some of the musical experiences, but I think with not Unsung, Uncensored, they try to cover like the music and the life together. So, you know, and Tevin's a bit reserved too. He doesn't like to share too much, which is fair. You know, I feel like the industry wasn't really fair to him, so I understand why his guard would be up. All right. Let's see. Y'all said Yolanda Adams at Freaknik. Yolanda Adams was not at nobody's Freaknik because she was already doing gospel music by then. I think Yolanda came out in what, 91? She was not at nobody's Freaknik. Dark Titan said the con man is out of prison. Why is he out? Exactly. Folks get all kind of chances because they're let me have put together Calvin Fest and scammed y'all out of y'all money the way I would have been under the jail till I was 79. Man. Somebody said, "Oh, they'd love for me to interview Janet one day." That would be fun. I'm pissed because I did not pay for a meet and greet because I don't believe in paying to meet people. But one of my friends just was telling me because they met Janet at the Florida show, and they're like, "Oh, she smelled so good. She was so nice. And she held my hand and we talked." I was like, "Don't rub it in, all right? Just I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for you." I'm like shaking, man. Somebody said Christians can be free. Yes, they can. All right, listen, they be getting it in. But see, they do that behind closed doors. They weren't gonna be at nobody's Freaknik. Let me quit. That's funny. Let's see. Somebody said you should try and get an interview with the older low-key producers. Daryl Simmons is a dope producer. That would be really cool. I want to, because like I said, I'm getting bored with my channel. Not bored like I don't want to make videos anymore. I'm just bored with what I put out. Like I want to kind of enhance, but it's hard to do because fortunately, and thank God, there's been additional opportunities outside of YouTube that have come. So that's taken up a lot of my time. But I definitely don't want to abandon the channel. I just don't want it to get stagnant. So there's like some new things I'm trying to do here. I haven't really introduced any of them yet, but we're getting to them. As soon as I get the Mariah So What Happened out, then I'm going to start kind of jumping into some newer things I want to do on the channel. All the other things will still be here. I do plan on bringing in the news back as well. The reason I haven't made them as much is they just take so much time and it's just easier to do it live. But I like in the news because again, it's pre-made. And by the time I do the editing, if there's something that I got wrong, I can go back and fix it. The challenge with doing a live is you got to really be on your stuff because if you slip up and mess up, and you don't catch it, you're just out of luck. It's out there, unless I go back and like slice a piece out of the video or something. But yeah, there's some new things I want to do. But my plate's been full for like 2 years with a bunch of different things, and I also don't share everything. Sometimes there's like things I've done under the radar that y'all probably will find out about years from now. But life has been good. Um, Man, Calvin, can you talk about the kids running wild downtown Chicago? I think is that the I think that's the clip I saw. I didn't really look at it and read it. I'll just say, like I said, these kids need something to do. When you get rid of all the rec centers and you get rid of all the things that have some kind of cultural significance, and everything's expensive and everything is criminalized and the world is already chaotic, I just think you're going to start seeing people respond in a certain way. I don't want to speak on that until I really know the facts, because I don't want to be out here just putting the wrong information out. But what's happening there, you're seeing it everywhere too. Like, even when you think about the influx of people who are kind of doing like those massive like smash and grabs where they run in the store and just take everything, and they know that the people that work at the store are not going to stop them because they're not supposed to, so they just go and steal in droves. Like, there's a whole lot going on right now. And even with that, I'm like, folks should be careful, because I saw the story about the guy that worked at CVS that shot the pregnant woman that he thought was stealing. So I'm like, I hope folks are careful. Um, let's see. Portia said, I'm of age. All right, look, I told you, just be about 25 and up, and then we can talk. Anybody 25 and 24 and down, don't worry about it. Y'all are like literally the oldest kids I've worked with. Like, when I started working with kids, that was 2011. So the ones that would have been juniors or seniors in high school are now 28 and 29. That's why it's very weird. I remember I was at Decades one time, which is kind of like a little lounge spot out here, and one of my kids ran into me like, Mr. Michael. I'm like, we gotta go. It's time to go. Time to go. But to be fair, I was also like 22, 23 when I started at that job. So I was a baby myself. Um, let's see. Poison Ivy, I agree. She was saying that like the community in the Bahamas did not deserve what happened to them with Firefest. Like, there were so many people that those people worked and did all that stuff and never got paid. And the woman that owned that restaurant, like, that broke my heart. Like, she had to spend like 50,000 of her own dollars to kind of just pay the debts off that were owed to the people that worked for her. And then she still needed like money to pay off the debt for her actual business. Like, that was jacked up. The fact that he could go down there, take advantage of all those people, not pay them, not even just him, his whole team. They just bounced and then didn't even make an effort to try to make those people whole. Like, that's some nonsense, man. Somebody said an interview with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. That would be dope. I'd love to do that. I could talk to them all day. Those are my two favorite producers, them and Prince. Like, I'd be here all day. I agree, Portia. Tevin was very reserved. I just think he didn't want to share everything, you know? Um, let's see. Somebody said they were having a good time. I think that's the church folks they're talking about. Um, Man. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna wind down because it's time for me to go to bed. Oh, V Power, this is a very interesting approach. So she said it's the same old narrative. The media loves pushing the over sexualized black woman stereotype. The Freaknik doc coming out is just more fuel to make society subconsciously hate black women. I will say to that, on the other side of that argument, I've also seen, because remember, there were a lot of issues of sexual assault at Freaknik. So some people are concerned and they feel like, oh, it's going to be something that paints black men to be the aggressors. And I'm like, well, multiple things can be true at once. But I will say, for the smoke that people will have for whatever happened at Freaknik, I just hope that that same smoke is given to everything that happened at Woodstock and all of the other festivals. I'll say that. And it does not give a pass to anything that would have taken place where people become violated. None of that will ever be okay. But I don't think Freaknik is going to be something that is painted in a way that over sexualizes. I look at it, and this is just me, I look at it more so as just like the liberation of young people having the freedom to have a weekend to just get away and do the things they do, all in the name of what is supposed to be fun. But I think if anything, they're going to talk about why Freaknik had to end, and just some of the setbacks. But we'll see where it goes. All right, this phone is on 3%. Hank, stay with me. Casey Johnson said, "Now, according to the grown and gospel, they were stripping and drugging and doing gospel music, so Yolanda could have been twerking and freaking. She could have. She might have been out there. I just feel like people would have knew who she was. Um, that's funny. All right. Um. Yes, Hugh Hefner was very disgusting. Very. Oh, Tamia. I like that one. See in the sunset. Any Tamia fans out there, Calvin, would you consider doing one on Tamia? She's great. Yeah, my favorite Tamia album is Between Friends, and my favorite Tamia song has always been Become Us. I love that. That's a great one. She was. I wish she could have blown up. She definitely deserved it. Great vocalist, and I really loved her tribute to Anita Baker as well at the Soul Train Awards in 2010. All right. Look at y'all agreeing. Yeah, I rock with Tamia. Great albums. I even liked what's another song? Lost in You. Find myself lost in you. I like that song too. That's a really good one. That's on one of her later albums. That's the one I think that has that's the Passion Like Fire, the Leave It Smoking, that project. Actually, the song Leave It Smoking inspired my song Can I Come Through off my last album. That's exactly what I was listening to when I was like, oh, I need something that has that smooth vibe. I want something like that. Yeah, to me, it's great. And I love the marriage she has, and I love that even with her marriage, like Anita Baker introduced her to the husband, and they have a beautiful marriage. I love to see black love thrive. All right, all right. We have exactly. I'm gonna get off at exactly 12:33 because I need to go to bed. Let's see where are we at here. This has been a fun live, by the way. I'm glad we were able to end on a high note because I definitely spent the first hour and a half with all that terrible, hard, heavy stuff. So I'm glad we can always end the lives on a high note. Like y'all recognize when I have to give the rough conversations, we can always bring it back full circle. So I always love that. Yeah, even when y'all be pressed about the trolls, it's interesting. I don't really have a lot of trolls even on my lives compared to some other folks. They just be getting cussed out the whole time. Um, so that's dope. Why do I think black boy bands don't really exist much anymore? Because there's not enough money to go around, and you got to split everything 4 and 5 ways. And most of the boy bands always got screwed over. New Edition never got the money they should have gotten, and they never even got the fame they should have gotten when you compare them to like a New Kids on the Block. It is dope though that in modern times they're able to tour and kind of make up for what was lost in the past. But I don't think labels are going to invest in any kind of groups, period, until there's more money. I will like the only group we have right now that's out is Flow. They were just here Saturday. I didn't get a chance to go because the show was sold out. But and Flow's the group that's from the UK. That's like the only group I've seen that's out. Um, and they're still very up and coming. But groups just don't want to split that money. And at this point, you make more money from touring, but the idea of just even making an album, a lot of times people go in the red just making the album. So I just think the idea of groups is it might be a thing of the past until the industry finds a new shift. And now that we're coming into this space with AI, that's going to be a conversation about the music industry with that artificial intelligence. And now you don't even need the artist to make music. I think you're going to see a lot of exploitation. You're going to see a lot of new music being released from artists that have been dead from years ago. And it won't be stuff that they recorded. It's going to be stuff that was made through AI. It's almost like that one Michael Jackson album that came out and it wasn't even him singing half the songs. It was, other people impersonating him, his voice, and then they're trying to pass it off as Michael. I see that happening, and that's going to be a problem. Um, man, I was watching Karen White Hot Shot yesterday. I love Karen White too. Like my favorite romantic is a favorite. Romantic, The Way You Love Me, The Way I Feel About You. I really like that one. Yeah, Karen has some good music. Oh, Shanice would be good. Yeah, I like her song "It's for You." That was the one on I forgot what soundtrack that was on. Oh, would I do one on Aretha? Oh, shoot, Aretha has such a long story. Okay, the thing with Aretha is because how much time do I got? All right, the thing with Aretha, if I'm doing a "So What Happened," that would have to almost cover an entire era. Because remember, she went through a slump in the 70s, even coming into the 80s, and that just ran and ran and ran. And then she kind of came out of the slump for a quick second with Sparkle and with Amazing Grace and with the Jump to It album. But there were a lot of moments where there was a slowdown. She was still Aretha, people still loved her, but there was definitely a few slowdowns and slumps. I don't even know which albums I would reference. But maybe there's an idea to do some different music content that may not be a "So What Happened," because I'm gonna retire R&B is Dead. Um, I'm pretty much just gonna retire it because I don't think R&B is dead. I'm gonna still have something that covers music, but I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. So yeah, I don't know if y'all getting any more R&B is dead videos. Just because at this point the title just triggers so many people and they don't even watch the video before they come on there ready to fight. But we'll see. If I don't retire it, I'm gonna change the title, or I'm just gonna say it's evolved into a new series. So maybe we'll do that. All right. Somebody said, I want to me and Deborah Cox to do a tour together. I really wish that Tamia, Kelly Price, and Deborah Cox album could have happened. I know they recorded some material. It just, I don't know what happened with that. That would have been really, really cool. Because those are like the singers. So those are the people that I consider the singers, you know? Sochi said, I don't know Flo. They're still very new. They're like an R&B pop group out of the UK. They had an EP that just came out not too long ago. The EP is called, because I actually bought it. I still be buying albums every now and then. It's called The Lead. And I think the song, I don't know what song they're pushing right now. Is it the song Immature, or did they come up with something different? I don't remember, but yeah, so they're still up and coming. R&B Evolved could be the name to replace R&B is Dead. Yeah, we'll see. The reason I kept the title is just because that's what people recognize it for. So people automatically because some people only follow me specifically for just that. They don't want to hear me talking about no politics. They don't even want to hear my music or the pot. They want none of that crap. They just want R&B is Dead. So there's some people I see only when those videos come out. So, it's like, well, let me keep the title because I don't want to lose that audience. So, but I want the channel to just evolve a little bit, especially as we grow. I'm like, now I feel like there's definitely a responsibility to really take note of what it is that I put out, because by having a larger platform, because again, like this time 5 years ago, I think I had like 5,000 subscribers. We've like multiplied that by like 12 at this point. So we definitely want to kind of enhance the experience. Plus, I'm also going to finally upgrade the lives soon, where it's not just live. We'll start having the visuals with the live as well. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up because wait, I hope the Janet fans get through the drama. What drama, Janet? Oh, them K-pop. Yeah, I'll do that another day. I don't have time. K-pop fans, keep it light and bright, especially when your entire everything that you follow has been borrowed from Black artists. Y'all won't be up here disrespecting the legends. Y'all tried it. Anyway, thank you guys. This has been a really, really dope night. I apologize for having to look at my phone for the rest of the live chat since my thing stayed frozen, but all is well. We will keep it going. I'll probably upload a review of 1001, the movie I was telling you guys about. Please check it out. I think it's a really, really great project. Tiana Taylor and her castmates, the guy that played Terry, did a really, really great job. So check that out when you get a chance. Do I have anything else worth sharing? No, not yet, but be on the lookout for some really great things. Anyway, I am out, and I will see you guys. All right, folks. Good night.